key there. QSH to the Expo builders. Control B.
Okay.
Are we live? Do we have a link or anything?
I see you going. Campus switches. Oh, you're just slow. Wow. Oh, well, I guess it's the live now. I think we're live.
Yeah. Do we have a link or anything I can identify to?
I have no idea.
How do we tell them where we are? On my channel, maybe?
Yeah, that's, what is it? It must be somewhere here to get a copy. Welcome, live chat, share. Where do you want me to send this to? Unican Kids?
Yeah. I just had the YouTube up on here. YouTube Studio stream. Okay.
Are you going to email it to everybody?
I was attempting to give him a link, but
Post it right here in the chat. You tell me.
go, do it. God damn it. Let's see what happens. Does it tell how many people sign up?
I've never done it. Oh, wait, is it? Oh. Yeah, oh, it does. It shows people.
Shows how many people have signed up.
Yeah.
Why is my... Oh, because that damn thing turned off. I didn't build anything with it. Okay, I'm gonna turn this sucker off. Okay.
You're going to be on camera there. Well, you are.
I
on
don't care.
camera there.
Am I on camera?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's there yet.
Okay, I'm gonna turn my phone off. Yeah.
Shows just Rex Harper, but that's you.
Okay.
Why does it show?
I don't know how to see what I am live, but I don't care now. I'm giving up on them. Okay, we'll put that aside. Am I still alive? Have we got anybody?
Yeah, there's a couple people. I think they can talk back, but we got Lauren, Bill, Stream. I'm not sure. Stream Eater.
Yeah, shoot. Hello, everybody. Well, not everybody. How many we got now?
Yep.
We got 39?
Nope. I don't know. This is weird. I've never used it.
Well, what are the numbers? What are the numbers over there on the?
Okay, yeah, good.
What's it say?
Looks like we're up to like 6 so far.
Oh, we've only got 6 people so far.
Yeah, they're coming in.
They're coming in. Okay.
Can you guys hear us okay? You can put it in the chat if you can hear us.
Yes, yes. We can get some chat back. We can't get voice back or video feedback. I'm sorry.
Somebody said yes. They can hear
Okay.
the audio.
All right. We keep checking the QSO today live stream, whatever air meet thing, and we can't get in. Just like everybody else, we can't get in. I'm supposed to be the host, and I'm not a host. I have no privileges to start it, so all of a sudden I'm sitting here ready. We've been ready for a couple hours.
We've been ready since yesterday.
We've been ready since yesterday. In fact, I have the session that we did. We did a complete run through yesterday, and we recorded it, and I have it up on YouTube as a private feed, and I will give everybody that feed later on, so you can get at least our first draft of yesterday's live event.
I should record this too.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, we're going to record this one too, so we'll have a second. I don't know if the second one's going to be any better than the first one because we're pretty frustrated right now. I mean, we've been running around trying to do something. How many people we got so far? 17, 21?
13 somewhere.
13?
Lucky number. We're at the lucky number.
Okay. What's the 21 number over there?
Playbacks. I don't know. It says concurrent viewers 13, chat rate 4. So.
Okay.
Hey, it's my first time doing YouTube live stream.
I've never done a YouTube. We've done this on the fly here. Fortunately, I signed up a long time ago to do Ustream live videos, and so I've got the 24-hour window was 6 months ago. I was getting ready for the Billathon, the last Billathon that hasn't actually gone out yet. Anyway, I'm just going to chat for a couple of minutes and see if we can gather up a few more people here. So
it's going up slowly.
It's going up slowly as people see that we posted it as being a YouTube. We try to get a hold of the QSO Today people. We get nothing but canned email messages back, canned phone messages back. So we have no idea what the story is. And I apologize.
This way we have more time. We were worried about running out of
We were worried about running out of his time. So unfortunately, we've lost the feedback of being able to bring people into the thing because this is only a one-way connection, except for the text messages back. So Steve is over there reading frantically. We've got a few people coming in with messages or something. So he'll try to do the best he can. I'll do the best I can. Never done this before. I never did the live stream thing before yesterday. So again, we're gonna just wait a few more minutes because I don't want people to.
We have cookies.
Yeah, we got
Somebody
cookies.
wants cookies.
Find yourself an adult or non-adult beverage and a cookie or a snack. Snack preferably, not fruit, not vegetables. A good snack, something that's terrible for your body. And then get ready because we will probably start this whole dog and pony show in a few more minutes.
Looks like Paul Brewer's trying to get in, so I posted the link again so that he's got it.
Okay, we're actually people trying to get into the air meet feed. We're trying to zing them over.
Lauren's been helping posting some things in the chat.
Okay.
Too, so.
All right, Lauren, thank you very much. She's really eager out there in San Francisco. She's in her hotel room with nothing to do. Raid the minibar, get yourself a beverage and a snack. I'm going to try one more time, just 1 minute, to see if I can't get an email to all the people who registered with me by buying a kit. So just give me 1 more minute. We're still shooting. You're gonna show that we're trying to save this baby.
There's still a few people who didn't have the URL. So
all right, I gotta switch my glasses to my computer glasses here and see if I can't get an email out of here. How in the heck am I?
Learn to solder.
Okay. So we don't need that.
Oh, Lauren is in Richmond. That's where my parents live.
Richmond?
Well, Powhatan. Close by. My sister lives in Richmond.
Richmond what?
Virginia. How many Richmonds are there?
Oh, I thought Lauren was in California.
Yeah.
Oh, that? Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize, but hang in there with us wherever you are. All right, let's see if I can't fly this baby here out of.
We got 15 people so far.
Yeah.
Somebody else.
I'd like to do it for more than 15 people, but you know what? I'll do it for whatever shows up in the next 5 minutes. I mean, look, we're already almost out of our window, but okay.
Yeah, we'll start.
You know what?
We'll start when it ends.
I'm assuming that probably the next sessions will probably not be starting on time either. So if you want to hang around with us, we're willing. So we've booked the room for the afternoon, and we will do whatever we have to do. Okay, so I want to send an email to.
It's okay. I have to act like my kid's monitoring like multiple live
Yeah,
streams.
and I'm trying to collect up my thoughts. I'm working under extreme duress right now, so I want to write a message, and I want to send it
Well, we
to.
can just show them the different camera angle of your workbench. Here.
Oh yeah, yeah. Give them a little flair here. I mean, we've got multiple cameras set up. Subject.
We've got a wicked cool title screen that you can
Yeah.
look at. Seems like a delay between.
And too bad we couldn't show them the. We have an endoscope to look at the end of the soldering iron while we're soldering, but we couldn't get that one to be hot.
Maybe they've just like fell victim to daylight savings time and they moved ahead an hour early.
I don't think so. Do we know how to actually? What is the link for YouTube Live? Do we have a link for that?
Oh yeah, I sent it. I thought I sent it to you. No.
Okay.
Oh.
Is it a bunch of gibberish that I can't type?
Oh, of course.
Oh, okay. Well then.
I sent it to you by email.
All right.
I know you're in your email. Do you?
Okay. Let me see if I can. Let's see. Did you send it to me? Which one did you send it to me? Toucan?
Yep, Toucan.
Okay, Stephen House.
It's got just the URL in the subject line and in the body.
URL in the subject line. No. Shoot, that one looks like. I think that's the one that we saved from yesterday.
Okay. You want to type it in? You can type it in.
Let me just get an updated message.
We got 20 people so far, so.
Oh crap! Now it won't let me into. That's what's going on. In my frantic. Okay. I have changed the address again, or my password again, in my frantic trying to get into YouTube Live, and now my email is dead.
Well, you should be able to just watch it. You don't need to log in on your. I don't know if they'll let you log in on your.
But then I got to send something. Okay.
Oh wait, what do you say?
All right. Well, the problem is my W1REX email account is administered by some company in Ohio because it's an old legacy. I've had that for 20 years, and they're very antsy about where I log in from. Every time I log in from a place that's not my home, they lock me out. So I believe that Google will not, Gmail will not allow you to send 150 emails in one shot because that's spam. So I have a deal with my legacy account that I can do up to 200 emails on the same list, and they don't consider that spam because I told them what I do. So I can send stuff out with W1REX, but they won't acknowledge that I'm over at my friend Steve's house. So I'm screwed. I'm screwed any way I look at it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I sent all the emails out before, blind carbon copied, because I didn't want to broadcast people's email addresses willy-nilly. So no one can forward any of my previous stuff.
Yeah. Let's see. Is anybody still waiting over in air meat?
Have we harvested everybody in air meat? All 22 of them?
Yeah, it was up to 23 and then somebody left.
Oh, somebody left to go to some other schlocky outfit.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
you haven't learned a damn thing about soldering yet, but if you hang in there with it, we'll get going. But we'll see whether or not. Oh crud!
Paul points out that Mailgun is better for mass email. There are a few other services out there.
Who?
Paul.
No. What?
Oh, Mailgun.
Mailgun.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I've never had to send out mass emails.
Yeah.
When I
Well,
start my spam career, that's what I'll use.
I never had a problem before,
Yeah.
and but I was always.
So today's a good day.
Well, I was always sending out to my email list on my Groups IO site.
Yeah.
And Groups IO lets you send a massive or a post to that whole list.
Yeah.
Because they send it out. Because those people are registered. But as straight email, Megalink and Google, neither one of them really like One doesn't like you sending out bunches of emails. The other one doesn't like you using unregistered addresses. So I use the Gmail when I'm traveling because I can use Gmail anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, but they don't like you sending out a bunch of emails. So I'm kind of screwed. I don't know how in the hell to get a hold of everybody. I can't do it from my phone.
Hey, that's not
Uh-oh. Okay, now we got multiple me's all over the place here. I'm confused. Well, I'm wondering how long does this whole thing go to? I mean, this QSO today, does it go till 5 o'clock or does it go till late? I never even checked the schedule. I'm not overly.
Oh.
Yeah, you shut down. So I can't tell what the hell is going on over there. Jesus, I only got one window, and
I mean, our session with him is over in 6 minutes. Anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, we're wandering out of our session, and I apologize for the confusion beyond my control. I mean, I'm normally pretty damn confused at times, and I get myself into many situations, but this is not one of them.
Well, we're up to 26.
Oh, we got 26 people. Hi, everybody. I apologize. Again.
9 p.m. Central Standard Time, I think looks like when it comes up. So that's 8 p.m. our time.
8 p.m. our time.
Yeah. My son's gonna want to kick us out of here so he can play.
Yeah, we got Dungeons and Dragons session in this room. What time's that schedule at?
I think like 5.
5. We got a whole bunch of nerds coming in.
We got 4 hours.
We got some serious nerds coming in at 5 o'clock. So yeah, if we don't relinquish the room, we're gonna have some spells and
maybe we can teach them Morse code.
they'll be getting out their weapons and their spells, and we'll be smoot.
So we're up to 30. How many?
Hey,
we're like 70. I think we're registered. Do you know?
I can't
or you
tell.
Didn't get that. Well, you sent out like.
Well, I have 171 orders.
Yeah.
For one or two of the kits. I couldn't track them all individually, so I don't know. But all I know is I sent out 171 packages in the last week.
Yeah.
And it really taxed me big time. It taxed my wife too. She wasn't happy about that. Gluing labels on packages. So I don't know how many. I thought I saw earlier there was, I mean, maybe there was only 1,200 signed into QSO. I thought there was a number that I saw that looked like there was a lot of people waiting around. I don't know. I can't tell. I know nothing about this. This is the first time we've ever tried it. I did not participate in it last summer. I was too committed with other projects. So I figured I better do this one. Didn't want the hobby to march by me, so to speak. And everybody's been going stir crazy in the pandemic, and including me. I mean, I hardly get out of my basement anymore. Anyway, so
we've sort of leveled off around 29.
We've leveled off at 29 people, and I will talk to 29 people. I'll travel out of state to talk to 29 people, and I'm still 20 miles from my house. So I tell you what, let's can the people who are tuned in, do they want to tune in for a while longer? Should I go through the whole spiel, or should I do a condensed version? How about we get some feedback?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm requesting some feedback. How long are you willing to hang in there and listen to me babble on about learning to build a kit? And if there's enough people out there, we'll go for whatever it takes. We might have to take a break for what do you got over there for drinks?
Whole spiel. Go for the full version. Sure. All afternoon. Let's do the whole spiel.
Well, I guess people are really committing to my time now. Okay. Give me some names here. Who's saying what? Do we know? Everybody's saying let's go for the whole enchilada, huh?
Yep. Everybody's for the whole enchilada. Eric, I have no idea how to add to the mic from everybody tuned in.
Okay. All right. Well, as I say, we're on YouTube live broadcast, and I don't think there's a way of getting your audio to us. I think you can only text.
So.
We don't know. I mean, this is the first time we ever tried this too. Fortunately, I had that account in my back pocket, and we ripped it together and transferred all our video feed over to that. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Yes, we're recording it.
Okay, we are recording this one for posterity too. So we're going to start right about as soon as Steve gives me a countdown. Oh, yesterday we ran about, it was it 45 minutes?
Yeah, I think it was like 42 minutes.
I think
something
42
like
minutes. That was primarily the build session though,
Yeah.
wasn't it? We didn't go through the tool part.
Yeah.
So, you
We're
know,
ready to go when you're ready to go.
okay. All right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to start over with some tools, and you know, because I assumed with this Learn to Solder that when I designed the kit, it was going to be primarily for people who are just starting out or maybe refreshing their skills and they haven't done a lot of soldering. So I wanted to sort of impart some, you know, general knowledge. I've been building kits since I was about 10 years, 11 years old. Even, yeah, younger than 11, because I was in Boy Scouts at 11. So it must have been about 9 or 10. My father was an electronics technician in the Navy, and he taught me to solder, and we built stuff together before I was even 10 years old. And so I've been building, I'm 71 now, so that's over 60 years. And I've been a professional for almost 50 years as an electrical engineer. So been building a lot of stuff. So we're going to go over, we're going to run down the tool lineup and give you a little bit of information about that. So I'm going to transfer over to another seat over here. So first things first, so, you know, this is a Learn to Solder. So the first thing you got to do is you got to identify a soldering iron. You know, here's a typical, let's see, this is my Old Faithful. Bess, I guess we could call it, Old Bess. This is a Xylem, Zytronic or whatever. I've had this station. It probably cost me about $50 or $60. I bought it at Jameco. I have no financial interest in Jameco. I've been buying stuff from them since 1980. First time I ever bought anything from Jameco. And I bought this from Jameco about that time. So this thing has been around my shop along with about 5 of his friends or brothers and sisters, because I have about 5 of these. Some that are analog. This is an analog control. Some that are digital. But this thing has lasted me forever. You know, $50, $60. You can find all kinds of them these days. The most important thing is that this is a 60-watt iron. It's replaceable. But the big thing on any soldering iron is you want to make sure that you can change the tip out. And you need to buy an iron if you're interested in if you really think you're going to pursue the hobby, you really ought to have a decent station that you can dial the temperature up and down. And you want to be able to change the tips at will, because this is a very fine, what they call a very fine tip, conical tip iron that I use for small circuit board stuff. But if you're doing something bigger, you could put in what they call a chisel point that's got a heavier, beefier, so you can crank up the temperature or crank up the power and solder bigger areas. So, but they do wear out. In fact, this one here is getting pretty toasty, and I need to throw it out and buy another one. So you need to buy an iron or a station that you can change the tip, and someone who stands behind it and has the accessories that you need. So here's what you don't want to get. Unfortunately, I'm on the long shot right now, and I can't show you this up close, but there's actually, this is one that you see, this is $4. This was,
put it over in this.
yeah, he's going to show it over on the other side. That's an iron. If you look at the side of it, see the little conical, little round tip, and it's held in the barrel with 2 screws, or 1 or 2 screws. Typical construction of a cheap iron. You do not want that iron to solder with that iron. It is a piece of junk. And you see them all the time at Hamfest for $4. Here's one I bought at Walmart just the other day. Exactly the same thing. This one costs, I don't know how much it cost, but it was about $7 or $8. A little hyper tough. I think that was Walmart. Maybe it was Home Depot or something, but one of these big box stores. Same thing. You look at that tip on that iron, 2 screws holding it in. And you're not going to be able to get different tips for it. It just is a piece of junk. So if you think that you're interested in soldering and you want to pursue it, you really want the most important tool that you can buy is a decent iron or a decent soldering station. Soldering stations should cost you about $50-$60. I mean, they go all the way up to hundreds. And my bench soldering station on my number one bench in my workshop probably sells for $600-$700. I didn't pay $600 or $700 for it. I didn't pay anything for it because it was given to me by a friend. So I wouldn't own a station that expensive, even if I am a professional. But the thing is, you can get a good station for $50-$60. I would recommend. It doesn't make any difference if it's digital or analog readout of the temperature. It doesn't matter. I mean, hot is hot. And as long as you're in the ballpark, you're okay. So two places I go to, as I say, Jameco Electronics in California and Circuit Specialist down in Tempe, Arizona. Circuit Specialist has a lot of different stations at different price points, and they also have the tips that you need, and they also have test equipment. Other things that you might need that are handy in fact, that's a Circuit Specialist.
I like mine better. It auto ranges, so I don't have to worry.
Well, okay. Steve has an auto ranging little meter from X-Tech, which is a very, very popular brand that you see in a lot of places, catalog places. This is the Circuit Specialist. I kind of like this one. It's got capacitance scales and capacity. It's got a temperature probe in it and all that kind of stuff. Nice little thing. But I got this for free when I bought a station from them. So you can get a station and a meter for
I got two free at Harbor Freight.
Oh.
Neither one of them worked.
Well,
both of them had a different probe that was broken.
Yeah.
And they were not interchangeable either.
Another thing that sometimes is handy, you don't really need one. Here's a AADE inductance capacitance meter. This thing here is about $150. So this is like 3 times more expensive than a meter. It's nice and handy to have if you're doing a lot of stuff with inductances, but for the most part, it's not a big deal. It's not a deal breaker. Another thing that I just wanted to talk about is the fact that back when I was fresh out of college, 23, engineer, made decent money, I was a tool snob. Craftsman back then in 1973 was like the cat's meow of toys, of tools. And so I had nothing but Craftsman. But to tell you the truth, I mean, that's no longer a thing. But I also found that there's a lot of companies who will do the same, lifetime guarantee, no questions asked. But now I'm very tool specific. I want the tool that I think fits the job pretty well. Now, another thing in working with small kits and whatnot is you usually need a pair of jeweler's screwdrivers. You see them at the Handfest all the time. They have $4, $3, $5 a set. Little micro handles and stuff. And in fact, I thought I had one in here, but I don't. Steve's going. Oh, here we go.
You're looking for the
Yeah, no, give me a whole toolbox. Give me a whole toolbox. Okay. Hey, we're live and we're ad-libbing here. Here's Steve's toolbox that he does his kits with, and he's got a couple of. He told me these are very cheap flush cutters and needle nose and dikes. Now that looks to me like that's one of those generic screwdrivers. I have several of those things. You can get them for $1.99 at Harbor Freight. That's a 1 pound wire stripper.
Yeah, those are my.
Okay. His grandfather's. I was looking for one of those sets of jeweler's screwdrivers, but he's got these things which are very reminiscent of the early Craftsman miniature screwdriver. Anyway, so that's his set. Doesn't take much. I was gonna step inside. This is my travel set, and unfortunately, I just took it apart when I was doing something else. But all this stuff. Let's see. Yeah, this normally fits in. I don't know if you recognize that. It's called the Altaz. This is the big tin, but inside this tin is my entire portable flush cutters, Now, in building electronic stuff, there's a difference between wire cutters and flush cutters. Okay, wire cutters or dikes. Whoops, where's he took that? He took his thing again. Okay, here's a pair of miniature dikes or wire cutters, diagonal cutters. These are slanted diagonal cutters, but when you look at, if you look at the blade in there, both sides of the blade are sharpened at an angle to cut something right at that angle. And the problem is that when you try to put that against a circuit board, you've got that tilted angle here. And so you can never get things right down to the board. And that's the difference between that and a flush cutter. A flush cutter is ground flat on one side, and the blade goes right down to that flat. So it nips it right off it. It's like cutting a tree down and not leaving a stump. That's what a flush cutter does. It just basically takes it right down at the ground, where a pair of regular dikes or side cutters will probably, leave maybe a 1/16 of an inch of that lead sticking up. You don't really want that. And in the case of, now see, there's another pair of dikes I got. Those are Radio Shacks. Piece of junk. Don't use those. I don't have any dikes typically in my soldering portable kit because I'm not cutting bigger things. Side cutters or dikes are usually used for cutting much thicker wire than we use for circuit board components. So I have a pair of flush cutters, and I have a nice little pair of square-nosed, short, long nose pliers with nice knurled things. The reason I like these is because they're being square nosed. I can use them as a square when I'm bending leads and things of that nature. By the way, both of these available at Jameco, which is my preferred place to getting these small hand tools. Well, it's locked. I gotta take the lock off. Wire strippers, again, I'm only using for like 20 gauge up to 30 gauge typically, so I have a pair that are just nice. And I don't use them for anything else, just working on the bench with stuff that you're going to use in a kit. I also have, this is my favorite iron of all time. This is a butane fired, this is a Radio Shack. It's one of the best things they ever made. Of course, they didn't make it, they just bought it from somebody else. You can still buy these on Amazon. In fact, I've bought a new one recently. Nice portable iron, fits very tight places. You can take it and build it anywhere. Always have. I got a teensy tiny little utility knife. I got that at Harbor Freight. Again, no financial interest in any of these companies, but I like to buy tools that are economical. Again, there's a straight just a small utility box cutter kind of knife for scraping and whatnot, cutting. I think that was 25 cents. I do carry a bulldog clip. I've got a nail file. I've got a regular scale, nice little stainless steel scale with fine graduations. A couple of rubber bands. And I'll tell you why rubber bands, because you take a rubber band, take about 3 turns on the handle part, and now you have, let me see if I can find, let me just see if I can find something here that I can, geez, I can't find a part. I was looking for, didn't we have a kit out here? I can't even, oh, there it is, I'm sorry, okay. I'm just going to grab any old part out of here. This is a demonstration. But let's say I wanted to tin these leads, see. I now have a third hand. For soldering iron, third hand, it's just basically using the same pliers in a rubber band. So that's handy, because ordinarily, a lot of times you got a big giant circuit board hole. This thing weighs about 5 pounds. You can't carry this around portable. I have something even bigger than this, and I bet you at least 8 or 9 different things to hold the soldering iron, or to hold the circuit board while you're building it. I don't use any of them. They're all collecting dust. these were supposed to be in here. This is my collection of, this is something I designed. They're available for me, so there is some financial interest there. I sell these on my site, my invention. And you put these guys, just put them on the edge of your board. You can put parts on the board, turn that thing upside down. You can spin it all over the place, and solder on the side, cut it off, put parts in, put it down. Very, very handy. And it's portable, so it fits inside your box. I also carry a lighted little magnifier, a little flat magnifier, because at 71 my eyesight is crapola. You gotta be able to read the little numbers. One of the other things I do is I don't keep a big, you can either keep a spool of solder. These are handy because they protect the coil. They're a little on the expensive side. I spool off some off my 1 pound spool, and then I put it in a plastic bag. So when you take it places, it doesn't get all dirty. You don't want dirty parts. You don't want a dirty iron. You don't want dirty solder. So the cleaner you keep everything, the better. Might need a solder sucker. It's best not to make mistakes in the first place, but if you do make a mistake, then you can do that. Desoldering braid works pretty good too. I find it to be messier. I can make a cleaner rework of a board using a solder sucker, and they come in different sizes. Show me a little one.
I thought I had some.
Oh, Steve has a nice little portable one. I can't fit that in my box, so I don't normally carry it.
Braid.
Yeah, here's some braid. It's copper braid, and when you put it down, it's got flux in it. So when you put it down on a piece of solder, okay.
Yeah, hold it up.
All right, see again, we're winging this sucker. So when you put this down on a soldered pad and you hit it with the iron, that braided copper wicks. Oh, he's going to put it under the okay. That braided copper wicks up the solder, and a lot of times if you do the braid first and get a lot of that excess solder, then you can suck the rest of it a lot easier. Sometimes it works better braid, and sometimes it doesn't.
That's Radio Shack braid.
That's Radio Shack braid, but you can get braid at anybody that has a good assortment of soldering equipment, tools, and whatnot. Those are handy. Another thing to let you know. Oh, by the way, this piece of junk iron. Okay, so there is one good thing that you can use it for. You can wood burn wood with it. Okay, it's got a nice fine point for that. And maybe you spend another $4 and you get another one, and you use it to melt plastic. Okay, but you don't want to use your good iron on wood or plastic because it leaves a residue that is just so hard to deal with in getting clean solder joints after that. So these things are good for, junky jobs. Keep your good iron for your good work. Another example is, I'm going to switch over to the other side here because I want to show you this. No. Close-up camera. The close-up cam. Well, we got to go down here. Okay, there it is. Very hard to see, but let's try this. Let's see if I'm looking at the feed because I'm trying to see if I get the angle right, but I don't know if you can see this, but okay, we're getting close. See the points on there? I mean, they're bent. They're it's busticated because someone used these to manipulate, pry, cut away something that is way too heavy for what these were designed for. So they're totally screwed. So I still use them. It wasn't me. These are my loaner pairs when I do build-a-thons. And someone got a little bit too enthusiastic about tearing into something, and these things are now destroyed. But the bottom of the blade is good enough to be able to use them, cut plastic away and stuff like that. So I use them on non-components. Okay, we're getting down to the end of our preferred tool list. Another, I think, important thing for just good construction practices is a lead former. This guy right here, it has different size, different widths of this thing slants over. So if I want 4/10 of an inch, I can put that in there, hold it down, and hold that in there, and I can bend that lead So now the leads on that are bent at 4/10 of an inch. So they fit right perfectly inside the pads of a typical resistor or an inductor on a circuit board. Pretty handy little thing. It's only $5. Um, and let's see what else. Oh, probably one of my favorite tools of all time is a set of vertical utility cutters. And you have to be extremely careful. This point right here is so sharp that, you know, if you could become a blood donor very easily if you miss holding something and you put that thing right into your finger. It's happened to me. You certainly
Hold it sideways.
Oh, sideways. Okay. So they actually got a utility blade right here that comes in as a guillotine cutter. And of course, that will go clean through a hot dog or a sausage. And of course, if you put your finger in there, it could go right through the bone too. I mean, I've cut all kinds of crazy stuff with this thing, but it's very handy to cut little header connectors and stuff straight down vertically, and much better than, you know, a lot of times when you try to cut them with flush cutters or dikes, they will separate and go crazy. Yeah, that's a nice one. This is a small screwdriver. Oh, he's going to go put it under the magnifier. That's a small screwdriver with a built-in wire stripper. Again, you know, designed for function. I've had that for probably 40 years. I love that little that little screwdriver. So, you know, the idea is when you find a good tool, you know, you get one. I use, some people use a sponge on their iron to clean the tip. Some people use a wet towel. I used to use both of those back in my younger, less knowledgeable days, but now I use brass shavings. And we got one over here. Go to the other camera for a second. So here's a small tuna fish can with brass shavings, and when you put the iron in there, those shavings will wipe the solder off the tip and give you a nice clean tip, but they don't cool the iron down. If you had a wet sponge or a wet towel, like right here, here's the professional soldering station with a built-in sponge for cleaning the iron tip. Boy, if you wet that and then clean the tip, hey, that phone is supposed to be off. Okay. Sorry about that. Shut up. Shut up. Oh, geez.
Maybe it's the USA people call it.
It is probably LA. that might be Eric Guth saying, "Hey, what are you doing hijacking that workshop?" So anyway, but yeah, when you clean the iron tip on that, what happens is it cools the tip down. So you might lose 50, 60 degrees in your soldering iron. You have to wait for it to heat up again. Don't like that. So I don't use those anymore. I go right straight to the brass shavings. Again, the kind of thing you get at any good supplier, purveyor of soldering equipment. So with no further ado, oops, I've drifted off screen, haven't I?
You want me to move back over here?
Yeah, I think we've run through the tools, and you know, I think that's pretty much. Oh, look at that. He's got tips right there in his holder right there. I've never seen that before. So you know, I can't cover everything, but for the most part, you don't have to have a ton of tools. Believe me, I've got a ton of tools. Steve's got a ton of tools. Literally, I have a ton, probably 2,000 pounds worth of tools.
You have much more than
I have okay, Steve's telling me I got more than a ton. I do. But you don't need a lot of tools to do kit building. It just, you know, it's just a small, as you can see, I fit mine, that's my portable thing that goes in the tin. I can take that out in the field and I can build any circuit board. I usually travel with a little bit more. I travel with a station, not that iron, or the butane iron. And I usually have a couple of the bigger tools with me. But for the most part, that's really all you need. So with that,
I would also, the other problem with the cheap soldering iron is you don't have something to set it on to keep it from burning everything, including yourself. The number
yeah,
of times those have fallen off the table and landed on my leg or my hand as I stupidly tried to grab it.
yeah, and also when you when you have a decent iron, um, if it doesn't fit in the holder very well because they weren't
Yeah.
matched, then a lot of times I have one that keeps falling out on me because this is not part of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've caught it going down onto the ground because I don't want the tip to go, and yeah, I've caught it wrong
Yeah.
and caught it right. So at any rate, yeah, I hope that wasn't Eric telling me that I
Too late.
violated
Our
some
session-
rule.
our session's over.
Our session is already over, so all right. So
We're on our own time.
we're on
now.
our own time now. So, this session was brought to you by QSO today, even though you're not seeing it on QSO today.
Does anybody have any questions about the tools? Just
Yeah,
post them in the
yeah,
chat.
yeah. Give us a little feedback if you're. How many we still got?
38.
Hey, we're up to 38. Okay.
Slowly crept up.
If you got, we'll take a couple of minutes just to see if anybody's got any questions or comments about tools, and then we'll move on to
There
the
was
actual
a
kit.
couple of people who said it'd be nice to get a list of the tools with links.
I have a document I haven't put on my website
Okay.
yet.
Yeah, I thought
Okay.
I looked there, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, I haven't put it up there. I started to do a document showing the tools themselves and where links to where you can get them.
Yeah.
My preferred tools, and it will be up there before the end of the weekend. We still have another big presentation to do tomorrow, so we're going to be a little.
What types of surface mat do you use? This happens to be mine.
This is Steve's surface mat.
It's just one of those self-healing things that you use to cut up paper on. But
Yeah, this is the fifth gears. A lot of times when I'm portable, and I will use one of those silicone mats that you get for your kitchen cutlery. And you can buy. I mean, I think I got it at the dollar store.
Yeah.
I got 3 of them for like $5. Now I see some people are using these silicone
Oh yeah.
silicone mats with all the little inserts
Yeah,
and stuff. I mean, that's fine. I tried not to collect up too much stuff when I'm traveling around doing stuff, but it is handy to have a decent workspace. At my number one bench in my shop, I just use a piece of masonite, and I actually have wooden borders around it. And when I'm working on something, stuff has a tendency to congest over here in the back and stuff. But if I wanted to clean my bench, I can pick the whole thing up and put it over and slide it into a slot and put a new one down, and I've got an instantly new clean bench.
I think I ended up with that one just because it was sharing the space where I would cut things up.
Yes, but as I say, it really doesn't take much. There's a whole bunch of talk about anti-static and stuff. I remember in 1973 when I first went to work for Texas Instruments, and we had one of our assistants was at the time if I remember correctly, an 8K memory board for a TI 960 computer was about 10 grand or something of that nature. It was terribly expensive. And she was counting out, they asked her to count out the RAM chips that were on that memory board. And so she got onto a bench and she counted them all out and put them in new tubes and stuff. And of course, she was wearing a lot of polyester. And just about half of those things were totally destroyed because of static electricity. But over the years, you see everything now comes in anti-static packages and bags and stuff. I have never, ever, wait a minute, I'm thinking. I have never, ever in my shop, my personal shop, ever grounded myself with a strap to an anti-static mat to build something. I've never lost anything. I've shipped a lot of kits that have some component that's static sensitive. But these days, that static sensitive is not like the old days.
I have bloodied my thumbs replacing RAM chips back in the day.
Back in the day.
I've done so many, and I never once did I ever wear a static thing, nor did I ever.
Yeah.
I'm sure it happens. I mean, if you shuffle it, I don't know.
I don't think that's a big deal. I mean, it's nice to be conscious about whether or not you are generating static.
Yeah.
So if you are, mitigate it.
Mini sudden receiver build will be here tomorrow. Well, I guess.
It's gonna be somewhere tomorrow, and hopefully by that time we'll get this squared away. So it will be on air air meat.
Somebody asked about the Wolf Hong.
The wolf hong, yeah.
What was that thing called? The Yuof Hong?
It's called the wolf hong, I guess.
Which tool was it?
Oh, I don't have one of those.
Where can you get one of those wire benders?
The wire benders.
The forming tool thing.
Oh,
I want to get one. I didn't even see
well,
one of those until
you're gonna.
yesterday.
This is gonna be yours after this session.
No.
Well, here's one. This one I've had for over 40 years. That's been in my
Where
first.
do you get them though?
Jameco Electronics.
Okay.
$4.95. Okay.
Okay.
It's in my little tutorial. I'll put that up, and if you make a trip to, actually somebody was in San Francisco. Who was in San Francisco? I can't remember who she was. I thought Lauren was, but somebody else is in San Francisco in her hotel room doing this session. Okay. Well, right down the street is the company called Jameco Electronics. They actually have a will call in their customer service. Every time I went to San Francisco, I'd drive down there. It's on the 101 south of San Francisco. And I'd go down there and I'd buy some stuff.
So do you use additional resin, such as when you want to desolder?
I haven't. Sometimes when I desolder, the first thing I do is I solder. I add more solder. Okay. I add some more clean rosin-based solder to now get everything all kind of bright and cheery and a little excess, because when you go use your solder sucker, it's easier to suck that whole mass up and have the old crappy dirty stuff coming with it.
Yep.
So no, I do not use extra resin. The only thing you'd use, and that's basically what is inside solder braid, is basically it's tinned copper with some flux inside to ease that. And that's why I say it's terribly messy. Whenever I see solder braid, you can always tell when someone has solder braided something, because it's got.
Do you use solder flux?
I do not use solder flux. Nope. I use a rosin core based solder, no clean solder, and it leaves it fairly decent, good looking.
I don't know what solder I use. It's like 30 years old.
Yeah, well, see a lot of old timers. We use.
Die from it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had this spool for God knows how
Yeah,
long.
it's getting
Maybe
it's getting a little on the dirty side.
Yeah.
This is a
I think it's silver. I wrote on it.
Gardner solder, 375 degrees, but
Oh, that was what I wrote down for
Yeah.
what it like actually.
no particulars or anything. But I would imagine if I examine that, it probably would be a.
I think I used that when I was doing car stereo stuff.
Who knows? But yeah, and that again, that's another good thing. Do not use, Hamfest bargain basement solder. Get yourself a decent solder and a decent iron, and you're gonna do most likely a decent job if you're patient. If you try to work too fast, if you work with crappy materials, you're gonna get a crappy solder.
I didn't choose the right diameter solder. This is really thin. I know I got some.
Yeah, this is like 031.
Yeah.
There's I use 031 most of the time.
The thicker stuff I used to use with the 12-volt stuff.
Yeah, back in the old days when you're doing car stereos and big ass 12-volt connections, you'd use 062 solder. 031 is pretty good for kits, and you can get 020, 015. 015 is used a lot when you're doing surface mount stuff. But I have a spool of 031. And I use that pretty much religiously, and I buy it in a 1 pound spool. It's going to cost you some money. These
What do you
things.
call that wire former?
It's called a lead former. In my document, there's already a picture of it in my document.
801 Jameco Bench Pro lead forming tool for resistors and capacitors.
Yeah. Don't use it much for capacitors, but yeah, you can.
Posted a link into the
Okay, there you go. A link's gone in. Okay, but looking at the tools at Jameco, you can actually see most of the tools I just showed you, because I buy my flush cutters, I buy my needle nose pliers there, I buy the forming tool, I buy those wire strippers, the jeweler screwdrivers. I don't think I actually showed those. Did I show the Harbor Freight ones? I forget now. These guys from Harbor Freight. Those are my favorite. Oh, now I'm over here.
Gotta be
Okay, I gotta be in this box. There is a box over here in tape. Yeah, I like these so much that when I do billathons, I typically have a raffle and a billathon, and I give a set of these away. They're about $7, $8, I think. But I like the fact that they're bigger handles with a spiral, and they're insulated all the way down. They got a long nose on them. Just they're nice, and you can get them. Used to be able to get them with a 20% off coupon, but now you can just see them when they're on sale or whatever. Um, any more questions about tools?
Nope. Eric mentioned that he heard great advice about using the small tubes. That way you can get exactly what size. Plus, being in that tube, it keeps it clean.
Yeah, which is why I use
Yeah.
I put my
You keep yours in
starter.
a bag. I just let
Now-
them kick around and roll on everything.
There's a lot of talk about, oh, you need a third hand to solder and tin stuff. Okay. Now, see, this is this has been in and out of this bag now several times over the last couple of days. I'm going to see if I can't resurrect this where the joint is on this thing. Okay, there it is right there. So I'm trying to. Okay, so I'll respool. What I got. I think this is important. I call this my Cobra trick. Okay, I have a spool of wire like this. You put it down.
You're on this camera.
Oh, I'm on this camera now. Okay, you can put this down like this, and I can take that and I can just turn it down like sort of like a Cobra. And if I need to get in and solder something, ordinarily you'd have a board in a holder and you're in there with it. But I can do this. I can just basically solder using the solder holding itself up, and I can get in there and I can use that as my third hand. So again, not having to travel with a big giant circuit board holder is handy. Using the four little brass things to hold the board also allows you to put the board down and now be able to do that. But sometimes you need more than that. Sometimes you're actually holding the part or the wire. I thought I shut that off. I think this might be Eric. Let me take this call. Let me stop this 1 second. Hello?
Well, sounded like you dropped the phone.
Well,
Oops.
hang in this, YouTubers here.
Do you see me on the screen?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I see him. Okay,
And
I'm.
hopefully,
Yep.
We got lots of feedback. Hold on a second.
I see 104 people in the. Yep, there's 103 people in the session.
Okay, I think we've only got one computer live now.
Yep.
Okay.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us okay, Eric?
I hear you fine. You sound great.
Perfect.
Okay.
If you can on YouTube Live, invite them back to the lounge.
I will do that. I will do that. We'll kick them back over. And we'll terminate the YouTube live.
Okay.
We're doing that now. I don't know.
Okay, so coming back.
We're flying by the seat of our pants over here. We don't know what we're doing, but we're trying to do something.
Well, we're flying by the seat of our pants as well. You know, we're learning a whole new system that.
Yes.
And I get the impression that the air meet is also learning a whole new system based on this. But you're here now, and
Okay.
I will stay here with you, but I will hide in the background and let you do your section.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right. We're back. I don't know where we are now. How's our?
I think we're on both.
We're on both? Okay. Well, listen, all you people on YouTube, why don't you go? Well, the question is, can they get into? Try getting into the air meet session now. Now that it's started, you should be able to get in.
Yep. Yep. If you're on YouTube, I think we're going to both places. So.
Yeah. Well, he requested that we terminate YouTube, and we'll try to respect that.
Drop off YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll see if I can. Okay.
Yep. Fiverr Zone audio good. Yep. Waiting for the people to come back. Make
No,
sure
I'm
they
not saying that, Rex. Don't terminate it. Leave it open. Let the people
Yep.
build their kits. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So
Well,
leave it open on YouTube.
we'll whatever we do,
Yep.
we're
It's more important that they build their kits, but they're on
it's
YouTube.
yeah. We got to deliver the service. Exactly.
We beg their forgiveness.
Yes. Okay. All right. So we're at both places. Okay. We're just in case we want to catch anybody we can. I mean, we got you here somewhere, and we're going to continue on. This is, technically hosted by QSO today, so that's where we're going. So shall we go back and visit some tools again for those people who already gone through the whole tools, or should we go? Maybe we should go build the kit, continue on, build the kit, and then we can go and look at the tools afterwards.
We can go back to the tools at the end.
We'll go back to the tools, and then people who don't want to listen to that twice can go bye-bye, and the people who didn't get can do it. Okay, so we'll do that. I guess we'll do that.
And this kit is the sender.
This is the 20-meter sender kit,
20 meter sender.
which was designed as the Learn to Build kit. Primarily was designed so that there's not enough parts to really get a long, convoluted build, but it still builds something that's rather useful and unique. So let's see, what do I need to do here? I need to gather up.
I can only reasonably manage the comments in one place.
Okay.
So if you get I'm going to be paying attention to the air meet one.
Okay.
If you comment over on YouTube, just cut me a little slack for
Yeah,
I might not
okay.
see it right away.
Did you hear that, YouTubers? If you're still on YouTube, we can't monitor both feeds at the same time. So Steve's back over at you at the air meet.
So people are saying that the quality might be better on YouTube for the video, so I'm going to try to watch both at the same
Okay,
time.
we're going to try to multitask and do everything under the sun, okay? So, but yes. So we're going to, let's see, we got an iron that, I hate your iron. I'm sorry, I hate that flash.
Auto turns on.
I know, but it's blinking at me like crazy. I hate that. It bugs the hell out of me. Okay, so
We're on this camera.
we're on this camera? Okay, all right. As long as I know which camera I'm on. Okay. Here's an example because we built this kit yesterday in our we did a whole run through yesterday of this, and that's the end result of our build. It's a little 20-meter transmitter with a battery on board, little cheesy power switch, and a switch here. This is acting as a short across the inductor, so you can either load this crystal or unload the crystal, and you get a little bit different frequency change in case you want to move somewhere in the band. And then we have another connector that you can go off to an external antenna. So you can actually, this is street legal. There's enough of a bandpass filter rejection that this actually meets FCC specs. So you can put it into a big honking antenna and see where you can get with 35 milliwatts of power. So we'll put that aside, and we will start going. And I might introduce the tools as I go along, just as a way of changing this. So first thing I'm going to do is and you could have been doing it if you had your kit beforehand. You could have taken the kit apart and separated all the parts to figure out what you've got, and is the kit complete. Actually, it's more than complete, isn't it, Steve? We noticed that we gave one extra free capacitor to everybody, and I think so. I'm just going to separate out the parts easily. Mechanical stuff's pretty easy to separate. And connectors, headers, header terminals, sockets. There's another header. Inductors. There's 3 green inductors. Look like resistors, but they're a little tubbier, and that's how you tell that they're. This red one here, that's also an inductor. Whoops.
Let me change back to the other angle. That was my bad. I changed to that so that they could see.
Okay. All right. So there's the weird one that's kind of hard to identify what it is, but that's a 0.47 microhenry choke. So we're putting that over here in the choke pile. Resistors we got over here.
What temperature do you set your soldering iron at? Mine doesn't have.
I usually set mine. To tell you the truth, I set mine at. I run hot. I set mine at 700 degrees. And my theory of soldering.
I actually wrote on there.
Yeah, 375 on this.
Well, I wrote 700 too. So
oh, 700. Okay, but my theory on soldering is set your iron hot, get in, solder it, and get out as fast as you can. Okay, use the heat for your gain. Get the thing hot quickly. Put the solder to it and get out quickly. As opposed to running too low, you have to end up sitting there waiting, and you're pounding heat into the part in the pad, and you might have to wait too long, and that's the whole big thing. I like to get in and get out fast. So that's just my personal preference, and you have to develop that style over dozens, hundreds. I bet you I've built thousands of things, soldered them up. So it just, you got to get the experience, and I like to work fast when it comes to soldering. So here's our kit. Here's all the parts all separated out into their things. And so what you have to do is decide the order in which you're going to put this thing together. And the best thing for if you don't have a lot of circuit board holding capability and whatnot, there's 2 things you can do. One of them is, of course, I'm known for the tuna fish can kits. And one thing I like about tuna fish can kits is they come inside tuna fish cans. And a tuna fish can is a great holder for boards. So I can populate this board and I can turn it upside down, and the center of that whole area is perfectly supported. And so this makes a pretty good circuit board holder. I mean, it's still slippery, but that's still okay because you can move the board around any way you want. The other thing is this board here has got a little Morse code key that's part of it, so it snaps off. So I'm going to set it off to one side. And if
a little bit further.
Up a little bit further. Okay, okay, here's my center tab. I'm going to try to. There's another phone call coming in. Okay, we got everybody turned off now.
I know that guy.
Okay. So if you looked at the documentation, which I posted late last night, I posted an oopsie daisies, and discovered that in my earnest effort trying to get this board in and out of the circuit board shop, I made a mistake. There was a layer, an additional layer that had a couple of solder rays from pads to the ground plane, and I missed adding them on. So over here in the 9-volt battery area, the negative terminal, if you look on the board, there are 3 pads where the negative terminal plugs in, like that. If you look at them, none of them go to the ground plane. So the minus part of the battery is not grounded. So what you have to do is take a sharp, this is a miniature razor blade, utility knife, and just, whoops, now I got the wrong glasses on. I bought a special pair of glasses for this whole Billathon thing, so I didn't have to keep changing them. Back in January, and they still haven't come. Actually, they've come 3 times, and they've been wrong all 3 times, so I still don't have those glasses. But what you do is you just scrape off a little bit of the solder mask and form a little pad next to the center pad of that thing. And all you got to do is just scrape it down. Try to use it as flat as possible. You don't want to dig it. You just want to scrape off that coating that protects the tinning underneath. And let's see. Yeah, that's good. So let's see if I can get. Okay, we're gonna zoom in on this thing. Wrong way. Okay.
I got a picture of it up there.
All right, he's got a picture up there. So all we did is just scraped off a little bit of that red solder mask to give a place to fit. We're gonna use that later, not now. But it's easy to do when the board is totally unpopulated. So if you've got some sort of a board holder, I know a lot of people have got a portable board holder or whatnot. I'm going to use my solder bots. Whoops.
You don't want to criticize my panel vice thing?
Oh,
Where did I put it?
that's right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is what Steve has. This is what Steve has to
That I never use.
that he never uses. But that's, you put the board in there and you hold it like that, and this thing swivels and tilts and everything else, so you can solder. I mean, I used to use one. I have one bigger than this and heavier than that, and it's a pain in the butt.
It's good at holding USB cords.
Yeah. And I bet you I've got at least 8 or 10 different various circuit board holders I bought over the years, and I never liked any of them because they're big and clunky. So I invented these guys, and they just 4 little blocks, and they slide on the board, and you tweak them down. They got little nylon bolts here, and you put 4 of those on the corners, and now you can put that board down and move it all over the place. It's perfectly stable. You can turn it that way. You can put parts in, build up some parts, and then you turn it over and you're perfectly soldering. This guy's going crazy on me again. Okay, so what we want to do is, I'm not overly concerned about what parts go in when, because I've got all this nice clearance from these things. I can put any part in there at any time I want. But if you're building it without anything, the board's got to fit on the bench. So the idea is when you put parts in, to try to put like height parts on it to keep it stable. So in the case of that, that's what you call a low to high build. So in this case, I got these resistors. They're about the flattest thing on the board, so I'm going to put those in first. So the first thing I got to do is I'm going to take the lead forming tool. I'm going to put this at 0.4 inches. I'm going to bend those all into a U. I'm going to bend them in mass because I know they're all going to go in the same resistor pads. If there's different sizes, you would have to worry about which one you bend which way. But in this case, I've got 5 resistors and 5 now bent. Now I can put them, install them where they need to go. So I'll just pick them up. I don't care what it is. I'm going to just pick up the resistor and then say, okay, where do I put it? 10K? I'll put it in the 10K spot. Put it all the way down. Hold it down with your finger. And then bend these just a little bit. And now it won't fall out. Okay. I got to just pick up another one. This is now this is where you got to learn your color codes. In this case, I happen to see a yellow in there, and I know there's only one resistor that's got a yellow, and yellow is a 4, so it's a 4.7K. So I put it where the 4.7K goes. Hold it down, spread the leads a little bit. Pick up another resistor. That's a 10K. That goes on the other side of the transistor.
Jeremy flipped the video on me.
Uh-oh. Okay, so I'll pick up another one. Now, this is different. I mean, because it's a lot easier to find the places they're all written down than it is to, okay, 100 ohms and then find the 100 ohm resistor. It's easy to pick up the resistor and take a look at it and say, okay, where's it go? There's 51 ohms, goes over here at the output, so 51. So I'll put that in there, and I got one resistor left, and that is the only place it could go. That's it's 100 ohms, so that goes over here. Now I could continue on and do like the inductors, which are close to the resistors, but I'm not going to stop there because I've got a forest of leads on the back side. So you want some components, but you don't want a ton of components. I'm going to use my brass shavings because they're much better. They don't cool down the tip, and you go in there and you get that tip nice and clean, and you bring on your solder, and now I can move this board any way I want to get to where I want to hold my iron. I put a little dollop of solder on the iron. I can see that little bead on the end, and I put that so it's touching the component and the pad. Wait a second. Add a little solder. It's done. Now, in this case, I got clean solder, good iron, clean parts, so I can do probably 2 or 3 of these without having to re-hit that. I still have a little dip on the iron, but I'm going to add a little bit more. It doesn't want to be a big puddle. It just wants to be a little bead that helps get the heat from the iron into where you want to solder. As you can see, it only takes a couple of seconds to do that job. I can turn this around and clean it. Hit another little dab. Again, the cleaner the iron, the cleaner the solder, the better the job. So that took all of maybe a second to heat up. Get in, add the solder, get out. So that one. So now I just got this guy over here, so I can come in at this angle.
Yeah, there's people saying that I can't find an option to make the video any bigger than it is. Yeah.
Full screen.
Well, that
No?
would make me full screen.
Oh,
That would
okay.
full screen, so.
So now that they're all soldered in, you want to cut them with your flush cutters. And as I said before in the tool section, flush cutters are what you want. They have a flat surface and they go right down to the board level and cut clean. So
How do you bend it without the bending tool?
that's why having a good pair of what I call square nose. These are square nosed pliers.
Focus.
Okay, he's gonna come in a little bit tighter.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
going out because they're out of
Oh,
focus.
all right. So yeah, I mean, you can go and do this. Okay, but you don't know where the 0.4 inches is, so that's why the lead former is kind of handy. But I happen to know that the 0.4 inches is just a little bit beyond both sides of a resistor. That might be a 3.5. Who knows?
So
Okay.
there was a couple of people who asked to slow down a little bit. I think on the soldering part.
Okay.
So
Slow down.
Let me know if that was a.
I already said I like to get in and solder and get out fast. Okay. Or they're trying to build.
You're fast.
They're trying to build at the
yeah,
same time. Okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you. Important part, when you're cutting off the leads, put your finger on the end so that when you cut it, it stays put. You can drop it right there on the board. You don't want to drop it on the floor. Don't want to drop it and have it, or cut it and have it fly across the screen, or across the not the screen, but the air between your board and your eyeball, and you can just move them off to one side. So there's 5 resistors. We all
Yep, we're
how we doing?
flying along. Looks
Okay.
like we got 225 people in the Airbnb.
Ooh,
session.
225 people.
That's more people than have kits.
That's right. That's more people than have kits. Okay. So that basically repeat and continue. You just keep doing it. So in this case, I'm gonna pick the 4 chokes next because they're closest to being a resistor. Now, again, I'm gonna very quickly, because allow people to get caught up, I'm gonna take my 4 little posts off. Now I have a bare board. I'm going to do this again with just a bare board with no holder. So I'm going to cut these pieces of tape off of here. Same thing. I want to cut them and keep those things from flying.
So do you have lead in your solder, and do you use a fan to move the fumes away from it?
I am old school. I stay away from the fume thing. That is a rosin core solder. And if anybody knows anything about solder, you're not getting solder fumes. Solder does not fume until it gets extremely hot, like in the thousands of degrees. The only fumes you're getting is from, over there. I'm sorry. The only fumes you're getting are from the flux. And those have changed over the years, but no, I'm not overly worried about it. I'm too late to worry about it. I've been building kits for 50 years. So it's too late to change. But yes, in my shop environment, I just have a fan that moves stuff away. It's not fancy. It's just a box fan. Anything that's generated here on the bench is going to waft away from me, just like being in a campfire.
So we had another question about
Flux.
Flux.
Don't add any flux. I use a rosin core solder. The flux is in the solder inside.
Doesn't matter which way I put my resistors on. I mean, I like all the colors to line up, but
some people are quite. I'm not going to use any derogatory remarks, but they like to have all their bands in the same orientation so they can just pick up the board and they can read them all the way. I'm not all that fussy. I don't have that much time left in the world to build every kit so precisely.
What about the mix ratio of the solder resin?
I think I think if you stick with a really well-known, well-received, like Kesta 44 is a brand we've been using for a long time, and whenever that's not a Kester. That's not even labeled on your mix. Yeah. So again, it's an off brand, and you probably didn't pay that much for it because you're a cheap ham. Yeah. Okay, but again, when I'm soldering, I want to use a good iron and good solder and some decent tools. So yeah, don't skimp on. I would not buy solder at a ham fest. Sorry, I want a good solder, so I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to keep it clean. I'm not going to drag it around. I'm not going to put it in a toolbox with all my plumbing supplies. That's why when I cut off a piece of it, I put it in a plastic bag so that it keeps clean. You don't want to pick up dirt from anything else, because the worst thing you can do is try to solder with dirty solder on a cheesy iron.
So a couple of people asking about tools. We'll go back to the.
We're going to go back to tools afterwards. I'll try to mention a little bit as I'm building along. So I brought in the flush cutters because we want see how this board is sitting right. I mean, it's smack flat on the counter because there are no leads sticking out of it. They were cut really flush. Diagonal cutters would leave little, almost like razor stubble. When you're trying to. Men who shave with a razor blade that's very old, they shave and you feel it. Jesus, what is all that stuff there? Well, that's because the blade is dull. Same thing. Now, again, I'm going to take my lead former. I'm going to form all these guys at 0.4 because I know I made the board to be 0.4 spacing for everything. Now, that particular one doesn't want to fit down in there, so I just put it on the top and still bend it at the 0.4. So now I got all those at 0.4.
Oh, my iron's a Weller brand.
That's a Weller, yes.
The one that he's using right
now is
Weller.
I have Wellers. I have Wellers like that, and I also have the Zytronic that I got at Jameco. I like Zytronic. They got lots of tips, and they're.
Any of those Hako or Hako?
Hako.
I have one of those, but I got it because it has the hot air.
Yeah, well, you got a rework station too.
Yeah.
And Hako is a little bit more expensive. They're production line stuff, so I mean, you're gonna spend more money for a Hako. I happen to have on my bench. I have a oh shoot, I can't remember the name of it. I'm too old to remember the names. It's an RF soldering iron. It's production. It's real production. It's the top. It's the top of the line, and it probably costs $600-700. I can't even afford to buy a replacement tip for it, so I have to keep it really, really clean.
That Hako one I got was pretty cheap. I think it was on Amazon.
Yeah.
A few years ago.
Hakos have come down into the hobbyist market pretty good. But as I say, I go to either Circuit Specialist or Jameco, and Jameco has got, I believe they've got both Wellers and Zytronic and cheesy stuff. Circuit Specialist has a lot of their own branded soldering stations, but They have all the tips and they stand behind their stuff. That's the thing. You don't want some fly-by-night guy who's at the Hamfest one day and you don't know if you ever see him again. So don't
we're
do
on
that.
The inductors.
We're on the inductors. So again, I pick up an inductor, I look at it and I see brown, black, black. I see that as being a 10 microhenry. So I put it on the board at 10 microhenry. Bend the leads apart a little bit so it doesn't fall out. Okay, I got another inductor. This is a red, which I happen to know is 2.2. So I'll put it in the 2. Now you see, now I'm not paying any attention to which way the stripes are going, the colors. I don't care. Some people want them all to line up. Here's another one here. This is a green, blue. Green is 5, blue is 6, so that's 0.56. You know it's not 56 because I kidded it and I didn't give you any 56s. It's got to be a 0.56. And then this last one is the one that's a little bit more difficult to read. This is a 0.47. Now this one, see, I bent that by hand. It wasn't quite right. It's probably 4.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pair of pliers and very carefully, I'm going to draw it in so it's nice and flat. And then spread the leads out. Now, see, I can put this board, you see, it's a little bit on the wiggly side, but, you know, it's not too bad. So this is another trick that you need to know about in building stuff is, well, normally I have something that's kind of heavy floating around.
Pan of ice.
Well, yeah, but that's actually too heavy. I was looking for something a little bit on the in-between side, but I will use, oh, wait a minute, where's my, here are my my wonderful, one of my world's most favorite tools. I'm just going to basically lay that on the board on that side. So now I've got it sitting on this thing, and it's in a tripod kind of a situation. It's relatively stable.
So why'd you take your little things off?
I was showing how you can still build a board without. Okay, no. Okay, here's the other thing. I forget about that. Tuna fish can. Board on the tuna fish can. Now in this case, this board, after I cut that thing off, is just a little bit too close. So I don't like that. So this is the better of the two solutions. So yeah, you put a little bit of weight on there, and now you do the same thing. Clean it. Get a little bit of solder on the end. I've got my right glasses on so I can actually see the board. Now, ordinarily at home, I might actually be using my visors, but my opto visor. So again, you put a little dollop on the end so you can see it, and you put that dollop, and you have to move that iron or the board so that you can get that dollop touching the pad and the component lead. Wait a second, add a little bit to the feed, and you're done. So again, I'll put a little dollop on the end and put it down on the base and the pad, and it's done. It doesn't take much. And you certainly don't want to keep feeding lots and lots of solder because, you know, excess solder is just a royal pain in the butt to deal with later. So I'm going to turn this board around and I'm going to put it back in underneath this thing.
John, stick around. We'll talk about circuit board holders.
Well, we're going to go back to mine in a minute because I think mine are the best. Okay, so I put a little dollop, put it on there. And a lot of times you have to pay attention. You got to watch it because you can actually see when it starts to wick. And that's when you need to add a little bit of solder and the job is done. And one last. You see, I'm weeding myself. I'm getting in and out of all these trees that are sitting here, trying to get one tree out of the forest. Again, I will put my finger tip on top of it. I'm going to get this out of the way because I'm not going to need him anymore. And cut that off, and it stays put. Okay, and there's the board. Now I'm going to put my things back on because I happen to like my things. And you can see that they are a lot more convenient to carry around than this guy. So ever since I designed these babies, I have not used any of my old circuit board. If you want a really good deal on circuit board holders, I can probably sell about 8 or 10 of them before I run out. I'll give you good deals on the ones I don't like. Okay, so now we've got my circuit board holder, which is good because we have things that are much higher than the resistors. How's everybody caught up to me? Should I stall for a minute?
Let's see. What do you do for failed soldering?
Failed.
Yeah, failed.
I don't fail soldering.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. In what way? In what way failed?
Cold? I don't know. Wait.
Crank
Failed
the iron
soldering.
up.
Cold doesn't make a connection, or you just keep going and it doesn't seem to sort of do that capillary action.
Well, I first would investigate whether or not the iron's up to temperature. I'd investigate whether or not the solder's decent. Okay. But if it's cold, if it doesn't seem to want to do anything, I would have a tendency to really have a suspect with the iron. The iron is not hot enough. I'd crank it up. Now, in the case of a lot of times, okay, I've been to billathons where all of a sudden I had a whole bunch of people come that I didn't have enough. Oh, I'm over here. Sorry about that. Of course, I do billathons all over the place. And sometimes in Dayton, I'd prepare for 40 and 50 would show up at the door. And I don't like to really turn people away if they're really interested in building and whatnot. So my big box, it's a 5-foot travel box, and it's got nothing but soldering stations and soldering irons. And I have enough loaners to do about 30, 35 people. But if a lot more people show up, then I get desperate. That happened to me in Albuquerque one year. And I went over to one of the booths and I bought these I was fascinated by these USB soldering irons. They're only 8 watts. Plug into a USB port. Well, the problem is they run cold. They're okay because if you solder a point, it's okay. But if you're soldering more, all of a sudden there's more heat leaving the iron than it is being generated by the heating element. So the iron runs cold. And I suspect that if you've got a problem like that, you're not running with a big enough iron.
What about the solder beads off and doesn't stick to the project?
If it beads off and doesn't stick to the project, there's no flux. That is solid core solder with no flux in it.
Yep. So you'd have to add flux to make
Yeah.
that solder work. Or
Yeah, and that's the wrong kind of solder to be using. You really want flux core solder.
Do analog soldering stations hold their heat well?
I don't think it makes any difference. It's how cheaply or how inexpensive they want to make an analog meter is a lot cheaper than putting digital electronics in a digital display. Some people are sold on digital. It's got to be digital. It's the new thing. I got probably 5 analog irons. I don't care. I dial it up to 700. I look at it. It's hot. I don't care if it's 705 or 700 or 675. It's in that area. That's all I need to know.
Lead-free solder?
Lead-free solder takes more heat. It takes a hotter iron. It is easier. I'm going to say safer in air quotes. I mean, that's what the industry is going to, but it is trickier to solder with. And that's the problem with silver solder is that you got to make sure that the iron is hot enough to really deal with it. So if I was trying to do silver solder, I'd be cranking my iron at 900. I think I'd top it right up. And but yeah, if you're getting solder balls and it's not waking up, it's definitely no flux because the solder's not sticking. And sometimes I've had that problem before in soldering machines where there wasn't enough preheat. So you added the solder before it really was up, the flux was activated. And I learned this. Most solder fluxes have to be activated about 375 degrees for who knows when. On circuit board soldering machines, which I have at my shop, you have to activate the solder for at 375 for roughly 45 seconds before you actually add the solder. So I would suspect that possibly your solder is not really what you should be using, or the iron itself is too low a temperature. Now, here's the other thing. If you've got a 25 watt iron, I would be concerned about that. These irons on almost all the soldering stations are 60 watt irons. And that's why you can dial the temperature up and down, and you can basically take it, 60 watts is going to create a hotter temperature. So it'll be running 60 watts at let's say 900 degrees. At 700, it might be running 45. I'm just, just for numbers. So if you go out and buy a 25-watt pencil iron, you are stuck at 25 watts, and it might not be the job, up to the job. So if I was going to recommend one pencil iron, I'd recommend it at minimum of 40 watts. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. Anybody else out there with questions?
Like an answer to
Okay.
questions.
I'm gonna do another round of parts then. Okay. So now we're gonna go to the capacitors, and we've got a little batch of those. So this is where, unfortunately, I have the glasses on, but this is why in my traveling kit I like to have a little. In fact, this is a.
Had a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, it's
This was supposed to be a. It has a light, but I don't know where the light is. See, operator error. Okay, but I can see that this right here is a. No. This is a 104. Okay. There's two of them in here that got threes. Okay, there's a 104 and a 223. So we're gonna start 104, 223, and this one here is we just ascertained last night this is a 68, I believe.
104 is the 0.1 microfarad capacitor.
Yeah, wait a minute. Let's see what this one says. Yeah, this is a 471. Okay.
470.
All right. So 471 on a capacitor means 4, 7, and 1, 0. So that's 470, 470 picofarads. So that happens to be in the middle of the low pass filter. And it always helps to have the parts list and get over on the other one for me. That's why I printed this one sheet: parts list, board layout, schematic. So if you have that right next to you, I mean, you can very quickly find out where the stuff needs to go. So same thing, I drop that down on the board, put my finger on it, hold it, move it both directions on the bottom side. Okay, so it stays put. I'm going to take these guys, which are the 223s. Double check before you put them in, because they're very bad to unsolder. So there's 1, 2, 3 of those. So we got one of them is on either end of the low pass filter. And the other one is down here by the key and the transistor. So I put that in there. Now I'm not spreading them flat. I'm just spreading them away a little bit so that they stay put. So I'm going to set this one aside for a minute. Throw that trash over there, and I'm going to get. This is the 0.1, which is a 104. That's a 1, 0, and 4 more zeros. So that happens to be a 0.1. So I'll put that one there. And then this is the feed from the output of the transistor to the output circuit, low pass filter. Okay. So we're down to one last capacitor. Oh, there's one extra on here that if you look around very carefully, you find doesn't have a spot, so you get a free capacitor. So I'm going to look at this guy. I'm going to just double check this again. Geez, I'm having a hard time reading this one. Steve, could you read that for me? Well, use your phone or something. That's the other thing. A lot of people use their magnifier on their phone. Gives it good light. Gives it good light and magnification using your phone camera. We do that all the time at build-a-thons. I don't have my real handy dandy, really super duper. What's it say on that side? He's having trouble. Okay, turn the other side. Turn one side On capacitors, one side are the specifications of temperature and percentage of accuracy.
Something 3, 4,
3.
6. Looks like Y3.
I just want to double check. I mean, we're down to one resistor capacitor remaining at 68 picofarad. So
I'm not doing any better.
you're not doing any better? Just,
It zoomed in all the way.
yeah, I gotta find out where your camera is here. Jeez. That doesn't help me at all. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to depart for just 1 second because I need more light to be able to read this number. Over here to a light source.
.47 microhenry should be yellow, violet, gold, right? Should be. It might be the big red one.
Yes, the big red one.
LTE mode, get an option in the
That-
bottom right corner.
The reason that one is so hard to read is the numbers even half the size of what they normally are, which are hard to read. This is the 68. I just wanted to double check it, but according to my magnifying glass, it's 68
Try low
picofarad.
definition mode, see if that. Yes. Full screen button, upper right corner. Where this one says speaker. Yeah, all I get is speaker up in that corner. I don't get a change to low definition, but it doesn't seem to do anything different to my interface about making it full screen.
Okay, I've got all the capacitors in there. Is everybody still with me? Okay.
You're asking about making it full screen. I'm trying to.
Yeah, I'm not doing any of the controls over there. That's not my department. That's why I enlisted the help of Steve.
I went to low definition mode, but it doesn't give me any different option. Whoops, now I can turn the video off. That's not what you wanted.
All right.
Yeah.
Shall I proceed with soldering the capacitors? Is everybody up to that stage?
So
All right. Little dollop.
it's cropping half the screen on air meat, but crop there too.
I would say the most important thing is that dollop of solder on the tip. And if you got a very clean, very dry iron and you put it in there, you don't get the heat transfer. So when you try to add that solder, I can see where it might beat up off the iron because the pad itself isn't hot. And you can see I keep moving it around to get the best position of the part in the iron and the pad and where I can feed the solder to it.
Yeah, the YouTube stream is like a second or two behind the air meat stream, I think. People have been saying that the quality there is a little bit better. I apologize on the air meat one. Don't get a lot of options here.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whoops, I missed one right there.
Don't worry, we had issues getting started too.
Oh man. Okay. All right, now it's easier. before you go cut them all off, it's just easier to inspect all the ones where the leads are to make sure you have got a good solder point before you cut them off. Once you know that you've soldered them correctly and they got pretty good little beads on them, then you can cut them all off. Same thing, holding my finger on each one so it doesn't go flying.
Yeah, I think the air meet screen is just a closer and crops the edges. The YouTube one looks like a top-down view. They're both the same view. It just
Okay, missed one right there. Okay, so we got the inductors, resistors, capacitors all laid down. Now we can do a transistor next. So in the transistor case, I'm just going to separate the leads a little bit with my thumbnail. And I'm going to line it up with the orientation that's on the board. I'm going to put one hole, the bottom hole in first, then bend until that middle one goes in, then twist it till the third one goes in. Push it down, but not all the way down. I like to leave it 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch off the surface. That way, if I ever have to change it, I can cut it high with the flush cutters, and then take each lead and remove them one at a time. Never ever try to, well, no, never ever, but if you try to take and desolder all 3 leads of a transistor, you're just going to ask for a lot of work. It's a lot easier just to cut the transistor off at the top. Now you got 3 separate leads, and I'll show you the trick I have. Okay. After I solder this one in, I'll pretend like I'm gonna.
I apologize. I saw somebody post it over in the Q&A. Is the audio loud enough for people?
I don't know what we can do. What we got it?
No, I turned up the gain on
Oh,
the
okay.
microphone, but
All right.
I didn't see there was a Q&A in there.
Okay.
Okay, audio's fine. Okay.
So let's pretend I wanted to act. Oops, I made a mistake. That's the wrong transistor in there, and I have to remove it. So what I could do is with my cutters. See, now that I got lots of room, I could cut the three leads individually, and the top of the transistor goes away. So now I just got 3 leads, and I could then use. Whoops. Okay. All right. I could use my rubber band trick. This is very important. Okay. Now I got spring loaded here. So what I could do is take one lead and put my pliers on it, and then hold it up in the air dangling. And then when I hit that thing, hit that pad on the other side, as soon as it heats up, the whole thing pops out and you got a hole. You might have to go back and suck a little bit or something, but then you do it on all 3 and you haven't damaged the board. Trying to remove a transistor, all 3 leads at once, is just crazy. I sacrificed the transistor. So I'm cutting those leads off now. Transistors all in. So what's next? Okay, we got a few things. We got these little 2-pin headers. The easiest thing to do is normally you would hold on to one end of a part and solder the other one, but when there's only 2 pins, that's very hard to do without, because you touch that other one as you're trying to solder, you're gonna get a nice burn. So I actually put it together, drop it in position, and it fits one way better than the other next to that big. That's kind of a tubby choke there, and you have to look to see which. And look at that, it actually, whoops, no it doesn't. Okay, it did on yesterday's build, it stayed put. So there's where now I got to solder those 2 things, but I can't bend those parts. I can very carefully see it wants to fall out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my roll of solder, and see that stays flat. I can pull this up at the very top, bend it over like a cobra, like a snake charmer. Okay, and now I can do this. I can hold that with my finger, put the board upside down, put a little bit of solder on my thing, and I can put that solder right at one of the pins. Come on. And there it is. I've now soldered that pin. I can re-inspect it to make sure everything's vertical. Now that it's held in place, I can go hit the other one. wait for that to cool down so that now they're both solid, and go back and hit that first one that was kind of a crazy little feed. So I'll just redo that and make sure it's a good solid. And there it is. That connector's done. Cut those 2 pins off. Take that off. Go get the other one. Put it on. And do the other connector, which is over here by the 51 ohm resistor. Same thing. I'm going to use my little snake charmer here. And I got that in there. Clean. Little dollop of solder. And wait for it to cool down. And now it stays in place. So I can hit the other side. Okay, so that connector is done. Did I drift off camera? I can't see the screen because the camera's in the way.
If the subject was 100%.
Hey, we're new to this. Okay, so we're getting close. We've got quite a lot of stuff on there. We got a couple of tricky ones.
Some of the close-up shots. Zoom that out a little bit. I think we zoomed
Okay.
in so that they could see some of the other things. Let's zoom out a little.
All right, so I got a couple of other things. One of them is this little.
If somebody wants it closer, not closer.
Well, you can't please everybody.
Okay, keep it right there on that. Right,
You got to please yourself.
keep it
That's
right
it.
over that blue tape.
All right, blue tape. There it is.
That one, right there.
Well, then this is the center right there. Okay. See, I got a little center place. So we're trying here. Okay. So I can take that off again. Now I got only a few more parts left here. I got these 2 connectors. Again, when you solder one of these headers on, usually you're trying to hold on to one to hold it in the board, but you can very easily get whomped with that, because if you accidentally are touching the one that you're hitting with a soldering iron, you get burned. So I put the connector on it. Okay. When I put it in the board, they do make ones that you can put in there and not fall out, but these aren't them. So I'm going to hold it by the connector. If you can see, I'm holding by the connector. I'm going to solder the non-connector lead. Same way. Get my little bead. Get the one on the end that I'm not actually touching. Wait for it to cool. Oh, it's tilted pretty damn bad. So I'm gonna rework that just to heat it up and move it over. So I could be a little bit more. Okay, that's vertical. Wait for that to cool, then hit the other 2 pins. Wait for those to cool, then I can just touch up the 3rd pin if I really feel I had to, and that connector is done.
Get rid of this border. I think that's what maybe they're talking about.
We've been fighting this
There's a
crazy
border
border on the
around
on the
this, but-
bottom. Yeah, it looks like it's like out of focus in the bottom. We haven't figured out what's going on there. It didn't show up in our YouTube feed, but it shows up on the air feed. Okay, so we're left with now the crystal socket, which is this guy. And you can take the crystal and put it in. And now you can hold on the crystal, but that's a little bit on the tall side. So I'm going to go take this free capacitor you got with your kit. And I'm going to put it in the socket. Like that. I can put the socket in. Oops. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. I'll put the socket in. Get my Cobra ready. Okay. So I'm gonna hold that down with my finger. Clean the iron. Little dollop.
You're not-
Whoops. Here we go. Little dollop. Okay. Look, I'm going to inspect it again on the other side of the board, and I say, I'm going to make it. Okay, I think that's pretty vertical. I like that. That's cool, so I can hit the other 2 connections. wait for those to cool, and then I can do that third one over again. If you try to do that too quickly, then what happens is the other two haven't solidified. Would you stop playing with my board? Okay, I can take that out and put it aside, and everything is done except for over here at the battery connections. Now this is where we had a problem. I accidentally left off the ground trace that goes from the center pin of the 9-volt negative battery terminal to the ground plane. So earlier we scraped that, used a little, what I carry in my little kit. Where'd it go? Yeah, I carry a little, just a little teeny utility knife, and you just scrape that away. I did it when the board was bare. Not with the point, but you try to scrape it flat. You're just trying to scrape a little bit of that solder mask off so you can put a bead of solder there. So I'm going to put a couple on my side like that. I'm going to add a little solder bead right there to that piece of.
How do you decide whether to use your little solder cobra technique versus holding the solder on the connection? Holding the solder to the connection.
Well, the problem is I'm holding the connection with one finger, with one hand, holding the soldering iron with the other. How do I get the solder in? So I use this, I stand the solder up so the solder's stationary, and then I move both of the other things. I'm holding the board in the part and the soldering iron, so all three come together. And that's how I do it without having a board holder. A convenient thing when you're building one of these things with a battery in it is, just so happens I save every now and then, I save a perfectly dead battery. I mark it so I know that it's a dead battery. In this case, it's got a little tombstone right there with a cross on it that says RIP. But the idea is the fact that I can take this battery, relatively safely put my terminals on it, and then put it on the board. Now I got, oops, okay, there, that's not right because there's the plus of the battery. So if I turn them around, okay, I turn them around, line them up, I can put them right in the holes, lined up perfectly. I can put the battery right against the holder. Sometimes I actually use a clamp to hold that battery right there on the board. And again, I can use my, comes my Cobra technique, because I'm holding the board and the battery with one hand. I'm going to use the soldering iron in the other. How do I get the solder into place? So I'm going to put him up as a Cobra. This is my own patented technique here. So I can put a little dollop there and put that right in there. Now I only have to do that once, okay? Because now with that one solder, everything's held in place. So I can put them back down and I can solder everybody else. Now these are the battery connections that are like mechanically connected to the battery, and they're going to be stressed whenever you connect or disconnect the battery. So I make sure I do hit those with quite a bit of solder. I want that to be as good of a solder mechanical connection as I possibly can make it. So I pour the solder in there and do all 6 of those points. Then I can go back and get that first one that I did. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now I have to put a little bridge across there. I put solder on that little patch we made. So I'm just going to take an old lead that I cut off of the resistor, and I'm going to put it in my spring hold pliers. I'm going to bend it a little bit, and I'm going to use my Mr. Cobra and just put a little tinning on there. Okay, yeah, everybody following that? And then I can just go, I'm gonna go solder to the bead on the board first, then go over to the terminal. Give it a little bit of air. Release. I can cut it off at the terminal. I can cut it off. There's a little extra on the bead, but it's not bad. Okay. The board is almost built. We can put the crystal. You can cut an awful lot of lead off. That crystal doesn't have to be anywhere near as tall. In the case of that, I'll get my wire strippers because I can cut both leads at the same size and the same length in one shot. So I'll do that. And now that crystal seats home a little bit closer to the thing. We have one little jumper that's already in there from when I installed it, and we have the other jumper goes over here at the choke next to the crystal. When you put that connector in, or the shorting plug in, then that choke is out of the circuit. It's been shorted. So now the crystal is directly grounded. If you pull it off, then the crystal goes to the choke to ground, and that's the way of actually changing the crystal frequency. So you get sort of two little active areas separated by some few kilohertz or so of separation. So you can operate two different places with one crystal. So now we've got just the mechanical part left. In this case, I'm going to put one bolt in with a nut. That's the contact for the key. Let's see, I need a Phillips screwdriver.
I wish there was a way to make that screen the same size as it is on YouTube. It's like, but yeah.
We apologize. We're working with what we got, and we don't like it that much, but we're dealing with it. So I add the three washers to the other one and put it on the other side, and the nut, and tighten that up. I'm going to put my fingernail as a stop, so when I tighten it, this thing doesn't go. It only goes as so far. And we have terminals and a shell left over, and the idea is you can make a wire. You can wire this together. Whoops. Okay, over here. Oh, hey, this is what happened. See that? My little thing is gone. Okay. So yeah, you can take and make a little wire jumper that can plug in here. You can remove this 51 ohm resistor, which is in essence a dummy load. So this transmitter operates into 51 ohms, but if you want, you can just pull one side of that and take a connection off of here and put it into a real live antenna, because this has enough rejection in the low pass filter to be street legal. Okay, and so now if you take the jumper and put it over to the on position, it's now transmitting, and we've got a 14056. Oh, got my dead battery in there. We need to put a live battery in there now. I just got a little Sony Worldbench radio over in the background here, so you can hear it. That's at 14056. This is the 14060 crystal, and it was oscillating at 14050. You know, who knows? Of course, yeah, it's somewhere around the 14055. If I take that jumper out, you can hear it's even lower now, so I gotta move it. 5.8, 5.7, 5.8, somewhere in that neck of the woods. So again, two little slightly different areas of operation with that one crystal. And of course you can take the crystal out, put a different crystal in, or you can make that choke a little bit bigger and it widens the gap. I think that's a 2.2. I believe Dave Ingram in his Hamfest Buddy, I think he put like a 22 in it, or 15 or 10, and he got that swing to be over there. Sorry about that. He got that swing to be like 10 10K or something like that. He would operate at 14060, 14050, that kind of a thing. But that's just a learn to solder kit. It's functional. It's actually a street legal 20-meter transmitter. It runs about 35 milliwatts of raw QRPPP power. But it's a fun little build. And the idea is you start and get little things. You build lots of little things. I mean, when I was 11 years old building stuff, I didn't build K2s. They didn't exist back then, but I built lots of little things, and you hone your skills building all kinds of little things, and you keep getting more and more complicated as you go along. A complicated kit is nothing more but a whole bunch of simple kits that take a long time to build, because you just section it off into sections and do little parts of it, and gradually get the whole thing built. I know I had a guy come into my shop back when K2s were hot, and he just didn't know. He was willing, but he didn't have the chops. So he came in every day at lunchtime with his brown bag into my shop and used my bench and my tools and everything else. And it took like weeks and weeks for him to actually get that thing up and running.
So we promised people who the missed beginning that we would go back and do the tool.
Yep. So we've got the build. Was everybody successful with building it? Are they still behind?
Got their resistors in an inductor and then fell behind, but we'll watch the videos.
Okay.
Yep, we've got it. I know the video from the AirMeet platform will be available for a while.
Yes.
For 30 days.
30 days.
And then we also streamed on YouTube, which I believe recorded it. We did a practice session yesterday.
Yeah, we did a practice session.
So
yeah,
Rex will follow up.
I'll probably have another. I certainly have got coming up will be a document on my webpage that has all the tools that I mentioned. So I have a little expose on there, the part numbers and where you can get them. Again, I have no financial interest in Circuit Specialists or Jameco or anywhere else, but it's good to have the right tools. So what we're going to do now that we built it, we did some YouTube as we were trying to bypass the stream here, and not bypass, but create something when the AirMeet didn't meet. So we'll go back now. We'll go through the tools that I have and that I recommend.
So as far as testing, a simple way to do it. Not sure what you did to test.
I have a Sony World Band radio off to one side, and I had it set at 14050 or 14060. And so I sat there and I activated this guy and listened to it on my radio. If you've got a ham radio, a 20-meter band ham radio, you tune your dial to 14060 and activate, turn this on with your little switch, your little cheesy switch, and activate the key, just like you're sending Morse, because you are sending Morse. You're sending Morse at 14055 in that neck of the woods between 055 and 060. So you can listen to any ham receiver, or in this case, if you got your home station, just dial it in. It should be there. 35 milliwatts on a 50 ohm load. It's not going to go very far, but it's going to go into your entire room and possibly your house. You should be able to hear it. You take that 51 and just lift one leg of it and connect a real live ham antenna, and you can probably get a couple of states out of 35 milliwatts. At the right time, you can probably get a lot further than that.
So we're going to move over.
We're going to move over to the other side of the bench over here, and we're going to go through the tool section one time. Okay? Anybody wants to stay, that's fine. If you already saw it on YouTube and want to leave, fine again.
Fine too.
I hope everybody got a little bit out of this.
Yeah, there were a bunch of people saying that they got a lot out of it.
A lot?
So.
That's good. I like a lot. A lot's a lot better than a little.
Yeah. Still people struggling with getting to different screen resolutions. So I don't know if that's on our end or on their end.
We don't know. We had troubles getting this AirMeet thing up and running, and we're lucky we're able to actually pull it together. And when we couldn't get it done, that's when we went over to YouTube and we started streaming there.
Yeah.
So
somebody also wants to know how to use an antenna.
Oh, I'm just teaching them how to solder. I'm not teaching them how to use an antenna. But that's what this second connector is down here at the 51 ohm resistor. That's an antenna connection. Okay, now it's not the world's greatest antenna connection. It's not a BNC. Whoops. Okay.
Which one?
Right there.
Right there.
Okay, that's right next to the 51 ohm again, look at the schematic. Hang on. I'm bringing the schematic in. Okay. So you're coming down here. Here's your key over here. Here's an inductor. So you're keying the crystal to ground. So when it's not keyed, the crystal's not really in the circuit. So you key it, the crystal's in the circuit, it starts to oscillate. So it's going to be a little chirpy. Okay. So the transistor oscillates at 20 meters, and it goes through a capacitor into the low pass filter and then down to the 51 ohm resistor. Now it doesn't show this connector that's right across that 51 ohms, but that's where the connector is. So that if you pull the 51 ohms and then wire into the connector, you can then go to a 50 ohm amateur radio antenna. For 20 meters, you could probably go into a very simple antenna tuner, LC tuner, and then to a long wire. And 20, that's why I picked 20 meters, because a long wire is not that long. You could probably throw a piece of wire 20 feet up in the air and transmit with it. If it was 40 meters, then you would have to get a lot longer piece of wire, twice as long, per se. Anything else on those comments?
Lead forming tool, that was Jameco.
That was Jameco. Okay. Lead forming, flush cutters. This is my lineup. That's my lineup from wire strippers. And again, I do have a document up on my we'll have one on my page tonight, which has the part numbers for these in the Jameco catalog. But yeah, wire strippers. Out of all the tools I've ever bought, I just like these tools the best. And I bought a lot of tools, and you'll see, when I go to Hamfest, I have dozens of flush cutters and dozens of these, but most of them are some of them, but my personal choice are these particular 4 tools. But that's getting into the tool department. Hang around, because we're going to discuss tools in a minute. We all set?
Yep.
Okay, all right, all you guys are just here for the build, fine. See you later. We're going to go over and run through the tools again. So this is a little bit backwards on this one. Okay, here we go. You're going to have to give me a minute to reconstruct. I got to reconstruct my toolbox. Okay, bear with me for a minute. We've already been here twice so far, so this will be the 3rd time.
Hey, look like the guy at the other table.
Huh?
You look like the guy at the other table.
Yeah, he's my brother. Yeah, we're identical twins. We're identical twins. Okay, let's see what else can I shove in here that I think usually you can get that in there if I push this thing closed. Oops, deforming tool. All right. Okay, I'm close. Whoop, my solder didn't get in there. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, I've reset. Everybody with me?
Still got a bunch of people in the session, so.
I still got a bunch of people.
So, yep.
All right. Okay. Well, this was actually, learn to solder. It was part tools, what you need, and part technique. So we're going to do this backwards because we've already done this once or twice before. But we sort of continued on. We've gone through this once earlier when the feed wasn't up. So when you really when you decide that you want to learn how to solder, one of the first things you really need to make a decision about is what are you going to solder with? How enthusiastic are you about soldering? And
They don't like your head being cut off.
oh, okay.
I did that to them.
Yeah, he did that. He
I was trying to
elected.
get the tools in the screen.
Okay, yeah, it's either my head or the tools. We elected for the tools. Uh, so, but what you have to do is like any other hobby, you have to decide how much you're in for. This is ad-libbing right now because this is something I have to get on my soapbox every time I do something like this. You have to decide how much you're going to invest in this hobby to get going. Now, if you're many typical hams I see, you invest in an iron like this at a ham fest for $4. And that's the absolute worst thing you can do because this, is there a show of hands over there? How many people in my audience
Well, no,
are below the age of 18?
They were admiring the Philmont hats.
Oh, okay. Philmont, New Mexico. Okay. Place I always wanted to go when I was a Boy Scout, and I never got there until I was 70 years old. But I still got there. Anyway, a lot of people will sort of go on the cheap side of the hobby, and you end up with a cheap iron. Now, this wasn't quite so cheap. This one, I think I just bought this one. I believe. Oh yeah, it says Walmart.com, and I think this was like $9. But guess what? Inside, and this is a kit. Gee, it's got some solder and a little tip, replacement tip. And the replacement tip is put on there with 2 screws. Okay, there's 2 screws on either side, and that replacement tip is just as cheap and just as crappy as the one that's in the iron to begin with. So what you get is a crappy iron with 2 crappy tips. Okay, and it's the same as this one that you can get at Hamfest for $4. Absolutely, you do not want to do amateur radio kit building or any kind of kit building with an iron like this. If you see an iron that's got some sort of a heater tube and it's got some holes down at one end and it's got these 2 screws there holding this conical tip, run fast and run far. We'll get a close up of that. Not very close, but okay, we're getting in there. See those 2 little screws on the side of the iron for changing the tip, and it's got this conical tip, and it looks like it's chrome plated or something. It is absolutely horrible. And really the only good thing you can do with that iron is to, number one, not buy it. Okay. Now you can see I've got 2 of these in my hands, but I had to buy it because to show you to not buy it. But if you do happen to have one of these things, the best thing you can do is use this to maybe punch holes and melt holes in plastic or something, because you don't want to get a good iron anywhere near plastic or wood. You can use it as a wood burner or as a plastic melter, but do not use it to try to work the kit. So I don't have a good example right now. I forgot to bring one over today of an iron. Okay, what I can. Yeah, see, most of us who are really into the hobby have splurged and bought a soldering station. Now, this is a typical soldering station. Nice thing about it, it's got a built-in holder for your iron, so you plug it in. You got a knob, you got a temperature gauge. You can dial up whatever temperature it is. This is an analog. This soldering station is probably at least 30 years old. I bought this in the 80s. It still runs fine. I got this from Jameco Electronics. It's a company called Zytronic, and they have there's a brand name. It's been around a long time. The most important thing is this iron is 60 watts. But by having the temperature dial on here, you can dial it down to 60 to 50 to 40 to 30. That's how you adjust your heat. Heat is equivalent to the wattage of the iron. You're not going to be able to get 60 watts of 900 degrees heat out of a 8-watt iron. It's just not going to happen. It might be very, very briefly. But the minute you try to heat something up, that heat's going to go away, that temperature's going to go away, and all of a sudden you're trying to get it back with only 8 watts of power. The important thing is that the iron has replaceable tips and heating elements. And when an iron has that and you buy it from someone who actually stocks the parts, you can get the replacement handle, you can get the replacement heater, and you can get the replacement tips. You need a few different tips for different jobs. Like for instance, PL231 whatever connectors, big honking connectors. When you try to heat one of those up, you need more heat. You need more contact area. So you need a bigger tip, broader point on it, or even a chisel point on it, and you need to crank up the temperature to get get that thing hot enough to melt solder. If you're going to a delicate thing like a little capacitor, you want to dial it down. You want a nice fine tip so you can get just in there and heat what you want to heat. So you can get soldering stations anywhere from $17 to $1,700. Depends on how much you want to invest. I recommend, the $40 to $60 range. You can get a decent, either a name brand like Zytronics. I mean, I looked, you can get a Zytronics station for about $60. Circuit Specialist in Tempe, Arizona is another place I bought a lot of irons from. And they have a tendency to do more private labeling, but they stand behind their stuff, and you can get the replacement tips that you need, and they're decent. They're not $4 Walmart irons, but that's what you probably want. And I recommend a 60 watt soldering station. It's going to cost you $50-$60. It doesn't make any difference if it's digital or analog. I don't really care, as long as you can adjust the temperature and know reasonably what it is. I don't have to see that it's 597 degrees. That's not important to me. What's important to me is I can put it on 600 on the dial, and I know when the LED goes off or on, or when it goes off, it's up to temperature and it's 600 degrees or whatever. That's important to me. So you need a decent iron. The other thing we just talked a little bit about in the build before was you need decent solder. I would not buy anything other than a name brand solder. Kester is probably the name in solder. There's a couple of other brands that are pretty good. You want probably, although it's been banned in Europe, I mean, lead tin solder, lead alloy tin.
Sorry, any advantage to RF irons?
Well, they're the cat's meow. I happen to have one on my bench that's probably worth $800-900, but I can't afford to buy one, and I probably wouldn't buy one if it wasn't given to me as kind of a gift. So RF irons are cool, but again, they're used in production because they have a tendency. If you look at one and you feel one, mine weighs about half of what a cement block weighs. It's 10 pounds of RF transformer inside. It's big. It's not portable. And the tips, the more expensive the iron, typically the more expensive the tip. And I really feel as though the tip is more important than how it generates the heat. So, you get a Weller or a Circuit Specialist name brand or a Zytronic, and you buy maybe 3 or 4 tips at $3, $4 a piece, different styles. I like to use a long conical when I'm doing small boards with lots of leads and stuff. You want a couple of different chisel points, a long chisel point, a short chisel point, and maybe a very broad chisel point. Yeah. Hand those over. Okay. So for instance, this is what was in. You can't see this very well, but we're gonna go to, we'll go to the close up in a minute.
Well, I zoomed that in over.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to find my hand. Okay, so there's a very broad, what I would call a flat chisel. Here's not a particularly, that's a,
There we go.
yeah, that's a flat tip too, but very small, and sort of an in between. So he's got 3 different sizes of tips on there, all what I would call kind of a double bladed, like a screwdriver blade. Okay. But the thing is, you'll see that when you get an iron or a station, you want to make sure, or an iron, you want to make sure that you can get replacement tips, and probably you want to get a couple of different tips for it. Like this particular, okay, we're going to go over to the close-up camera.
It says,
Okay.
Use a Weller, don't buy the tips from AliExpress.
No, don't buy a real live, and you don't want to, sometimes you don't even want to buy them on eBay, unless you know that what you're getting is what you're getting. Okay. But yes, they're not all that expensive, and in fact, I think there's a lot of talk between AMs, one guy will want a real life Weller tip, and sometimes people like Play-Doh. I mean, Play-Doh is a name brand who makes soldering equipment for commercial applications for some of the lines and whatnot. So Play-Doh, but they also do hobbyist stuff. So Play-Doh, Weller. I happen to think that Weller has a tendency to be overpriced myself. I'd rather have a more economical brand that I know is decent. So I've always stick to Zytronic. I do have some that are circuit specialists, because I have a box when I go to a billathon at a Hamfest. I might have in that box, I've probably got 10 or 15 Wellmans. I've got a whole assortment of different irons, and people have a tendency to try them and see if they like them. And so I've got maybe 20 soldering stations and another 25 different irons. But I have a tendency to stick towards what I have, my experience I've liked. So I buy either my irons from Jameco or Circuit Specialists. And I say, if you really think about going that route, you can get a station for $50-$60. If you're not really all that sure, you can buy the same brand, like Zytronic makes a soldering pencil. They make a 40-watt pencil, which is okay. It only costs $16-$17, something of that nature. So it's not bad, but you're going to get one temperature, and it's not quite as convenient. You don't get the dial up the temperature for the job. So it's like having if you've been around a farm, it's like having a short-handled shovel. And a lot of times you need a long-handled spade. You need a flat nose shovel, a square nose shovel. You need a grain shovel. And it's nice on a soldering station. You can put a tip in there and do that shoveling job that you need. So, all right, we'll continue on. So, speaking of that, soldering stations. We talked about solder. You don't want really, really unknown stuff. I think you really want did I get into the silver solder?
I zoomed in on your, nope, not yet, but
okay.
We'll talk about that. I zoomed in on it so people can see it.
Okay. When it comes to solder, I mean, there's a big thing going on about silver solder and lead solder. Silver solder doesn't have any lead. It solders at a much higher temperature. Some people have switched over to it, and it takes a hotter iron to solder. It takes a little bit more patience with it. It's a little bit more difficult to deal with, but that's what they do. They like it. Some people, I'm old school. It doesn't really make any difference. I can solder with either one, but I have a tendency to just stick with my my Kester 44 or what have you. Name brand real life solder, lead tin solder. But you don't want to, sorry about that. I thought I had turned my phone off. And I can see, I don't know who that is, but we'll have to bear with some beeping for a minute. So yeah, either one is okay. But when you're using lead solder, I mean, obviously you're handling lead, so you want to maintain your cleanliness. You don't want to be eating a sandwich and handling lead at the same time. They talk about lead fumes. Well, lead doesn't fume. What fumes is flux. Okay, so when you're melting lead, the smoke coming out, it doesn't have lead in it. It has flux fumes. So I think they've done a much better job these days of making more organic fluxes that don't have a problem. But you might want to. I have a small little box fan like off the back of a computer or something, and it sits on my bench and it just sucks air away from the thing. So it's like standing in the middle of standing around a campfire. If you're the lucky one who the smoke seems to always come your way, you want to basically create a draft so it moves along. You don't have to have a big fume extraction system, but in commercial environments, that's what they do, because OSHA says that's what you must do. So that's what they do.
What about a butane iron?
We'll get to that in 1 second.
Okay.
So, don't get bargain basement Hamfest solder, especially if you see it in the bargain bins out there and it's filthy. You know, it's filthy, dirty stuff, because the dirt that's on that solder is going to be the dirt that ends up on your connection, and the dirt that keeps you from making a good solder connection. So you want good, clean solder, and there's, you know, 015, 031, 062. I mean, that's you know, 062 is a 16th of an inch in diameter. 031 is a 32nd of an inch in diameter. So I use 031. But sometimes when you got something that you really honks the solder to, then you get out a bigger, you know, roll of thicker stuff. Then again, if you're doing something with surface mount, you want 015. You want something very thin, or 020, 22, or whatever, because you don't want a lot of solder there. You'll get into trouble. If you have big solder for a little job, you can get into trouble fast, because the solder, you know, goes in and you end up with way too much solder. You don't want that. You want just the right amount of solder. So a lot of times it's you gauge the gauge of your solder by what job you have. 031 is good all rounder for building kits. Cleaning your tip. If you notice, my soldering station had this little place to put a sponge. You see a sponge there? No, I don't have sponges. Okay. Steve's Weller's got a soldering sponge right there, right below the iron. The problem with the sponge is the fact that when you got water on the sponge and you take your iron and you hit that water, it turns to steam and it sucks all the heat out of your iron. That's bad. So, I mean, what I recommend is what the professionals use. It's brass shavings. So in this case, you know, you have a tin with the brass shavings. You put the iron in there, wiggle around, and you've got no heat dissipation in the, well, very little. I'm not gonna say no. You got very little heat leaves the iron when you clean it off with the solder shavings. So I use that. So we'll get to this is my little. Now, to chop off my head or not chop off my head, because now you can't see my. Oh, wait a minute. Well,
Yeah, but some people can't see that.
okay. Well, how about if I scooch down like this?
Chop your head off a little bit.
Okay, we have to elect to chop my head off to show you some tools. This is my little travel kit. You know, it's in an Altoids tin. Okay. Tell me which one I'm supposed to be looking at over there.
You're on this one.
No, which
Oh,
that's the outgoing sound, because see the one on the upper screen has got low.
Because that's where whatchamacallit, like,
Okay,
this gray bar on top.
here we go. All right, I got it in a good spot now. So in my kit, lead former. I have a little box cutter knife with nice sharp blades that you can snap off. That comes from I think it's 25 cents at Harbor Freight. Freebie screwdriver from a guy I used to work for. It's got a nice little small Phillips and a small blade. Butane soldering iron from Radio Shack. One of the best things they ever sold. I lost 3 of these to TSA. You know, but I bought more. So this is probably about the 5th one I bought. That's still charged up with butane. I don't have my lighter with me, but nice little portable iron. You can build kits with it. It's got a nice little pointy tip on it. Generates plenty of heat, and you know, a can of butane, you can recharge it. It's got a built-in little stand. Pretty nice little rig. Costs about $30. Even I don't know if Radio Shack still has them, because they've come back. They've come back. But they've always been available on Amazon. You can find the actual manufacturer, because Radio Shack didn't make them. They just sold them with their name on it, but somebody else made them, and they've always been available. So I have another off-brand little magnifier. So because a lot of times I'm getting in my advanced years and I have a hard time reading some of the numberings on that. Here's my wire strippers from Jameco. Here's my flush cutters from Jameco. These are Ace-Lite 170s. My favorite go-to flush cutter.
A question came in. Do you change the temperature of your iron to something lower for delicate components, or you just keep it at the same temperature?
Nope. I keep it right around 700. I mean, what's a delicate part? Tell me what a delicate part is. They're all delicate.
I'm delicate.
No, the point is, a lot of times when you reduce that temperature, let's say now solder melts at like 375, 400, somewhere in that neck of the woods. But the problem is if you've got an iron that's just slightly smaller than the melting temperature, you're gonna have to leave it on there longer to get everything up to temperature. You know, I'm of the flavor that I run my iron at 700, and I know that if I put a little dollop of solder on there and put it on there, I know I'm going to get heat rushing into my connections fast. I get my solder on there fast, and I get the hell out of Dodge.
What about something like one of the PL259 connectors, that center part of it?
Yeah, well, now you're talking a very specific case. Yeah, you might worry about the melting point of the nylon or the PTFC, whatever
PTFE.
that PTFE, whatever the insulator is on that center thing. So yeah, that one's where you want to make sure you don't put too much heat to it. So yes, I would say I would crank it down. Now, if you had a pencil iron, you can't do that. There's no cranking allowed. Okay, they do make a couple of pencil irons that have 2 or 3 different wattage grades on them with a selector switch. I wouldn't go for that. I'd go right directly to a soldering station if you're getting that kind of stuff. But certainly, you would also want a smaller tip for that, a small delicate tip that only transfers a small amount of heat. Okay, but if you're doing the outside where the shielding is, then you want a big chisel point. You want to pour the heat to that because that copper just sucks up the heat. So yeah, soldering station, big element to do the shielding, change the element to a delicate one, crank the temperature down a little bit, and do that fine.
How do you know when you're at 700 degrees?
Well, I mean, generally the LED goes off. It's on a heating cycle. They'll tell you almost all irons. Here's one here. There's a power and there's a heating LED on. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, let me bring it in the screen. So I got a power that tells me it's on, and I got a heater that tells me the heater's on or off.
And you turn the dial to...
I turn the dial to set the temperature, and the temperature says right there, it's 500, 600, 700, 800, 900.
Yeah,
okay.
And I think mine is times 10, so it just shows 65,
yeah,
70.
Yeah. Okay,
Yep.
So the point is you dial up the temperature you want, and you're looking at the red LED or whatever, and that tells you when that light goes off, that tells you it's come up to temperature. And when your iron cools and the heat cycle starts again, the LED comes on. So yeah, that's what's handy about it. Yeah, so if you think it's like, okay, I don't play tennis. I have one shot, the on net drop shot that comes back over. That's the only shot I have in tennis. I love that shot. And but you know, if you go play tennis and you say, I really like tennis, are you going to buy a $5 racket? Are you going to buy a $50 racket? You have to make that decision. How good are the tools you want to use to do the job? And if you're going to solder something, the eminent word there is solder. If you're going to solder, you want the best soldering system that you're willing to pay for. And I think in the $50 to $100 range, and I think $50 to $60 range is perfectly adequate. And I've got lots of them that were $60, $70. I do not have any other than my gift, Metcal. Metcal is the one.
Metcal, yeah,
Metcal, that's the RF one.
Yeah.
And as I say, that thing weighs, just the base of that thing must weigh 10 pounds. Nice iron, but I can't change the tips because I don't want to buy another one.
So make sure you don't forget your board feet when we get to that point of your
Yes.
tools.
Okay.
Somebody asked about those too.
Well, they're in there. We haven't got to that part yet. Okay. So I got another little screwdriver that's been around my bench for a long time. It's got an actual inside there's actually a wire stripper and a small bladed screwdriver. Just a cute little thing. I got a nail file, just for doing a little touch up on stuff that you might need. I have a nice ruler, so we want to measure stuff. We want to measure the distance between pads and things of that nature. I have a skewer, a kebab skewer, or kebab, whatever they say in England. Okay. And when I'm doing something that's like surface mount, I'll take my pliers, and I will use that. I will use that as a hold down. When I put the surface mount part, I can do that, and you got a nice perfect tripod. You'll hold it down and you solder it. So that's my handy dandy little trick for doing surface mount stuff. Oh, hold on a second. He's gonna show it to you over in the close-up cam. Exactly. That's another way of holding a flat part, so that you now hold the part in place and you can get in there with your iron in one hand and your solder in the other. Pretty handy. The other thing that's handy is you can get stainless steel probes, dental probes. So this is another way you can do the same thing. You can do it like that. Okay, but I generally use those when I'm probing around on the board, and sometimes it's nice. Solder doesn't stick to stainless steel, so you can use a stainless steel probe to go into a hole and try to clean it out. But that takes a little bit more guts, a little bit more skill. I also carry a bulldog clip. Pretty easy to cost you nothing. But again, I don't have any parts laying around here. we've already soldered them all up. Give me a
Should have an extra.
give me a capacitor. Where's that capacitor? We use it to plug the crystal in. Oh crud! We can't. We got an entire bench full of stuff. We don't have a spare. We don't have a spare part. I'm gonna pretend like I got a spare part. I'm gonna just use a. You won't be able to see this in your camera, I don't think. Jeez, I can't even pick one up. For instance, now here's a small solder lead, but you can put that in a bulldog clip, and now it's perfectly held. So this could be a part. Now I can. See, it's pretty hard to actually see the lead coming off of it, but now because I got a nice little tripod, I can actually hold any part I want and tin it or do stuff with it with two free hands. So a lot of times I don't want to carry a big clunky. I have 8 or 10 of those big clunky circuit board holders and third hand units, but they're all just gilding the lily as far as I'm concerned. Another nice useful thing is, I think I paid, $1.99 at Harbor Freight. Again, I have no financial interest in Harbor Freight. I just love some of their tools. In this case, a very small utility knife. So I used that early to scrape the solder mask off the board, but it's small, fits in the thing. I put that back. Oh, and probably the piece de resistance is the brass set. And while this is what Steve has to hold a circuit board that he doesn't use because it's so big and bulky and gummy and everything, what I have are these guys. This is my own invention. It's 4 little brass squares, and they mount on the corners of the boards, or they can, any kind of board, round, square, crazy weird. Huh? Okay, I'm putting them on the 4 corners. You saw me, I had the board when I was building it in these guys. And so now I can put parts in the board, turn it over, and it's totally stable. But the most important thing is the fact that I can just spin it around anywhere I want, because when I'm going in with my solder and my iron, I have to find that magic spot every single time. Okay, all right. So I have to find that magic spot. This is the magic spot for showing the magic spot, okay? So when you got your iron in here, not this iron now, but when you got your iron and your solder, you have to get that magic point. So the idea is being able to spin it any way you want. Yet when you want to go to put more parts in, you just put parts in. You flip it over and it's great. And as you can see, it takes absolutely no space up.
Here, put it over here.
Oh, okay, we're going over here.
Just so they can see it.
Okay, we're in the close-up machine here. Mr. Peabody, put me on the close-up machine. Okay, so there's what it looks like from the top side when you're putting parts in, but normally you're holding it in your hand, you're putting the parts in, you turn it upside down, and it is totally stable. And but you can spin it around to get to that point where wherever you need to solder, wherever you need to get the iron in, you got the perfect spot. And that's the most, I think that's probably the most important thing about soldering, is the fact that you have to be totally comfortable. And in my case, I do not like to have both of my hands up 6 inches off the bench trying to solder something, you know, in one of these big giant holders, because I've got no support. In the case of this little guy, I can actually use the edge of my table. I can put this right at the right spot. I can use the edge of the table to hold up my forearm. Flip to the other side. Oh, it's already over on the other side.
It's on the.
Yeah, I was thinking about that one over there.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see I'm over here. I'm using the edge of the table to hold my arm, and usually my palm is on the thing. So I don't have to hold my hand up, iron up in the air at all. I'm totally at rest. And that just makes it so much easier. But if I'm up here trying to solder something, I think that's just aggravating beyond belief. So that's my take on that. Couple other things that you need.
Sounds like you're going to have a few orders. You know,
I might. I usually do. After I went to a billathon once. I did a billathon in Dayton, and I had, I don't know, 40 people in there, and they brought all those big gummy things. And I said, okay, I got an experiment. This is after I just designed it. I said, anybody who wants to try my solder box, my brass set things, I have many pairs. So I put out about 20 pairs, I think, to people trying them. And I says, okay, I'm going to give you a deal. How many people want to take those home with them? And just about everybody who had them said, oh yeah. Solder sucker. The big thing is take your time and don't make a mistake, so you don't need to suck anything off. But okay, if you do, it's handy to have one. They're not really that much money. You can
they're saying yours is too large.
Yeah, I happen to like this style. I've had this style ever since I became an engineer back in 1973. But yeah, they do make smaller portable units, but this one doesn't have anywhere near the sucker this one has.
Probably not.
Man, this one, look at the volume of the cylinder.
Bigger spring.
When this thing sucks, no, it's the volume of air that gets vacuumized. So when this thing sucks, man, it sucks. This one here doesn't suck quite as good, but it's
I'll take my small sucker.
I have both. I have a small sucker for portable, and I have a big sucker. We did go to the lead forming tool. Here's my original lead forming tool that I've had for probably 30, 40 years. Handy. You can get rolled solder in little tubes that keeps it nice and clean and everything, but it's not much of a value because I think this is like $2.95 for a little spool of it. So I spool my own off of a 1 pound spool and put it in a plastic bag, and that way I can now see. It's pretty hard to do this with your little thing because it's kind of unstable, but my little Cobra snake technique works pretty damn good. Here's another tool. This is probably my all-time favorite non-circuit board tool that I use a lot. It's a utility knife blade that's a guillotine cutter. And I bought this many years ago at Stanley at my local hardware store, and I loved it so much, and then I accidentally misplaced it. And I found out it was discontinued by Stanley, and I lost it for like 2 years. I was heartbroken. Literally, I was heartbroken because I use this all the time. I couldn't find it. And then I found them at Home Depot. A little bit less money. And so I bought a couple of them this time in case I lose another one.
Where'd you buy the giant Altoids tin?
That was a promotion they did a few years ago. Okay, I don't remember how long. I don't know if you can get one anymore. But anyway, so then I had a Home Depot one, and then they discontinued selling them, and they showed up at Lowe's. So I bought one that had the Husky brand on it. I think it was Husky at Lowe's. And they discontinued it. And then I saw them at Tractor Supply, and they discontinued it. And I think it's got to do with the liability issue. You know, you can put your finger in there and you can slice it. You can slice it clean through. And I'm not sure how many people did that, but I bet you a lot of people did. But it really is nice for cutting things like cable. You can cut coax with this thing, and it's a perfectly straight cut, very clean because it's really sharp. And the minute that thing gets dull, you put a new utility blade in there. Pretty damn nice. And then, of course, after I had about 8 of them from all the other stores, I found these. I was so relieved, but these are certainly much more. Now, I discovered All those people discontinued them, but you can get them on Amazon. The company that originally made this version for Stanley, it's identical. Anybody knows where that comes from? Identical. And I saw them on Amazon. I think they were like $23, $27, something like that. So they're out there. But boy, I love that plier. Everybody knows the difference between flush cutters and dikes. Did I cover that?
No.
Flush cutters and dikes. Here's a pair of dikes and little needle nose I bought from Radio. I think those are Radio Shack with that little black and red thing. Junk. Okay. I don't know who made this one, but it says Japan. Japan usually makes pretty good tools. If it's made in China, it's certainly not as good as made in Japan. But this is a pair of dikes or side cutters. And if you notice, it's hard to see, but inside where they have the cutting blade, both sides are V'd so that it cuts at a very straight line, but there's a sharpened edge on both sides. And the problem is that when you get it down to the board's here and you still got this angle in here. So what happens is you can't cut it off right at the board. It usually has like some stubble left over. Whereas a pair of flush cutters, we'll go over here here's a pair of flush cutters, and these are bad ones to show. Okay, flush cutters. Can we see them all right?
Yeah, I think those ones you can see. Yep.
It's hard to see, but they're ground flat on one side, and the cutting angle is only on one side. So when you cut down to the board, you don't feel that one because that was not soldered, but you don't see as much stubble. If this was cut with a pair of dikes, the stubble would be all over the place. And sometimes it's important not to have that because you got to fit it in a tight container. Like for instance, tomorrow's bill-a-thon is for something that fits in an Altoids tin, and you want to minimize how high everything is, and that goes all the way down to the little stubble on the backside of the board. So we got those, we got solder sockets, we got solder. I'll give another plug for this is Harbor Freight. Now there's all kinds of little jeweler screwdrivers. You can buy them all over the place. Usually the blades are pretty cheesy, and if you try to turn something that's a little bit too big for the blade, and all of a sudden you've got a blade that looks like an S instead of a straight flat. I happen to think these are the best jeweler type screwdrivers, and I have several pairs of those, several sets. I like them. They're only like $8 or $9.
Can you go back and do a close-up of using the lead former?
The lead former. Okay, let's see. Where's the lead former? Now I'll use the ring.
Usually.
Okay. All right, we're in the close-up mode.
Yep.
Okay. We don't have any kits left here, do we?
No, look, there's a capacitor. Yeah, just use one of those.
Okay, well,
like down here though.
yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but I'm gonna put a lead. See, these are marked 4, 5, 6, 7. That's or point. That's 0.8 inches, 0.7. Most resistors on a circuit board are set at 0.4 inch spacing on the leads for the pad. So I can put a resistor in there, let's say. Yeah, you got a kit over there, don't you? Come on, give me a part. Give me a real part. Okay, here's a choke. Okay, give me one of the smaller chokes. Okay, I hope everybody's following along here. We lost any?
Yep.
Okay, here's a resistor. Okay. Okay, here's. Let me get this out of the way too. Wow, that's hot. Okay, so here's a resistor. I'm going to put it on 0.4. I'm going to lay it in this little slot. I'm going to put my finger on it. And I'm just going to pull both leads straight down. So if you're looking at it, I'm off camera. Okay.
Look at it like that. There.
No, but I was pointing it up so they could see how those leads are now straight down 0.4 of an inch. So if I put this on a board and I find the resistor, any resistor, okay, if I put that in there, it fits perfectly. Now the other way of doing that, of course, is taking a needle nose plier and trying to bend it, but unless you've been bending the parts for a long time, you're not going to get 4/10 of an inch. You're going to get 4.25, or you're going to get 0.450. We just did one a little while ago by hand. We got 4.50. So it's nice. Now I don't use most of these bigger ones down here for like big honking resistors or very wide spacing, but for the most part, up here is where I use them. On the other side is a little bit bigger spacing for, like for instance, that choke would have fit in there, but it starts at 0.5 inch instead of 0.4. So
Okay,
yeah,
your next challenge. How do you get the capacitors off of the tape without wrecking it?
I just cut them off. Right there. Okay, and cut it off, and you put it in the slot where a capacitor goes. Are we still in focus there?
Yep.
Okay. And I try to make sure it's square, straight up and down, because it fell down. And then I bend the leads apart on the bottom.
Okay.
That's it.
And the first Harbor Freight tool you mentioned, was that that cutter things? I'm not sure.
The first Harbor Freight tool I
Did
mentioned.
we lose audio? Have we lost audio? We still have audio?
I don't know. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it looks like audio is going out. Audio good. Okay, somebody
Okay.
lost audio.
All right.
So the first Harbor Freight tool,
Well, let's
I
see.
don't know if it was the cutters.
I got.
Is it
No,
this?
I didn't. No, I've never seen these at Harbor Freight. I got this little guy. I got the magnifier at Harbor Freight. I got that at Harbor Freight. I've got this at Harbor Freight.
Not sure which one.
That's really, I think, all that I get at Harbor Freight.
Wasn't very clear. It's the first time it was shown, so not sure what.
We're not sure exactly what you're talking
Small
about.
red one. That must be this.
Oh,
there.
must be this miniature. Yeah, it's a miniature lock blade utility knife. I mean, I don't have a real utility knife, but you can see it's just tiny. But it's perfect for a little portable box. Tiny. Oh man, I've lost my damn spot right here. I need a piece of another blue tape here. All right, I just picked up a blue. Okay. Okay, there it is. All right. Okay.
On your left. Oh no, he said thank you. Okay, so we.
All right. Are we good?
Yeah.
Anybody else got any tool questions?
The session was worth multiples of what I paid for the content.
Well, I'm glad of that.
Sorry. I
We
missed
didn't-
it. What was the name of that formerly Stanley cutter tool on Amazon? The guillotine cutter.
I don't know, but you know what? I'll put it in my tool thing when it goes up on my website sometime this weekend. Okay, because I have a picture of it. When I found it, I said, "Oh my goodness, they make those again." And I have, well, actually, I have a picture of it. But bear with me for 1 second.
The lead forming tool was the orange thing to bend the leads.
That's red.
Jameco.
I get that I got those at Jameco.
Somebody posted a link to the multi-cutter on Amazon, which is the guillotine thing.
Somebody posted a link already?
Yep. No to the flux question. Never use additional flux. What's the URL for your website? QRPme.com.
QRPme.com.
Yep. Rex is the one on camera. I'm Steven behind the camera. My audio might be a little low.
Okay.
I'm on the other side of the
He's on the other side of the microphone. Okay. Yeah. When I saw that picture, I think that was I'm not sure if it was identical to the one I got at Lowe's or this one I got from Stanley. I can't remember now, but I found two different instances of it.
Coax strippers?
I don't do a lot of coax work. Generally what I do is I cut the coax straight square with my nice wonderful guillotine cutters, and then I will very carefully I'll go back where I want to do and then tighten the jaw and then twist the cable around and then pull it off, And that's how I deal with it. I don't have a real live coax. I don't do that much coax work, so
Jerry had a question about the
Weller?
solder station.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my feedback here. He looked at a soldering station. He just looked at a soldering station he had for decades. It's a Cooper Weller PU 120T
yeah,
60
Cooper
watt
Weller.
station.
Yeah.
Does not have a dial. The iron is a TC201T, says use a EC234 heater. Pretty sure I never bought a replacement. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what the question is there, Jerry.
But Jerry, I do believe you can find replacement heaters. Those units back in the day, I think, had a cartridge heater connected to a tip. And I would say the parts are available, but to tell you the truth, I might, if it was me, I'd probably invest instead of buying a new heater, new tips or something. I might just buy a new station.
Is there a solder tool that can hook up solder like Radio Shack used to have? I remember they used to have one like little like
Oh, the little
vapor
bulb.
thing.
A bulb.
I don't know if that's the
That was a cheap imitation of a solder sucker.
Yeah.
Okay, you can find irons that have a tip that have that bulb on it, so that when you hit it, professionals use one that actually has a vacuum pump, and it's wired to it, so they hit that, they put it on the thing, and then they just basically hit a foot switch, and it sucks it all in. The Radio Shack version was sort of the same thing with just a cheap vacuum, with a cheap like bulb horn bulb.
Yeah.
I don't think it worked all that great. I prefer a real life solder socket. I really do.
It does feel like it's a three-handed tool though, because the solder sucker, the iron.
It's just a solder sucker. Well, if you got a board holder,
Yeah.
if you're holding the board in something solid, and all you got is a sucker and an iron. And as I say, the most important thing is, in a lot of cases, when you're trying to unsolder something, you've got if you've got a dry iron, you're not going to transfer the heat to what you're trying to suck, so it's not going to heat up. So having a good solid puddle of solder, or even maybe adding some solder to it, so that you have you can see it. You should be able to see a nice solid puddle of melted solder before you suck.
Yep.
And it should work. I've seen people butcher boards using desoldering braid, and I've seen horror shows of trying to take stuff off, and I have never had a real true problem with a true solder socket and some patience.
So info listed in the chats and QA be available afterwards. I hope so.
Yes,
we understand.
Give me the weekend to get through this, because we got another whole thing, a different one tomorrow. But I've got it fleshed out, and it will be up on my website soon.
Seems like we have more people now in the session than we had previously. Weird, because I think we're close to wrapping up here.
Yeah, we've been at it for quite a while now. What time is it?
Since noon, 4 o'clock.
It's almost 4 o'clock, so we've been here since 11.
So Rex is the one on camera. I'm Steven behind the camera.
Steve and I have been floating around together for 20 years.
Something.
Just doing stuff, but on and off. But I've been pretty serious into doing QRP and build-a-thons for the last 10 years or so. I think, and I travel. I've been to Albuquerque a couple times, and Huntsville, Alabama, Vienna, Virginia, California. So yeah, my soapbox is I'm a builder. I love to build things. It's not necessarily just QRP electronics or radios. I'm a computer guy. I like to build microprocessor stuff. I built my own house. I built my own Quonset hut. I built a log cabin. Built a barn for my wife's horse. So yeah, I just like to build all kinds of things. I think the DIY, do it yourself, is just it's what everybody should have some of those skills. And nowadays, I'm looking at the computer screen. Sorry about that. Nowadays, there's so much stuff that it's disposable only because no one's willing to fix it anymore. So, once you get these kinds of skills, sometimes it doesn't really take a lot of desoldering skills or soldering skills to fix something electronic. Sometimes it's just figuring out what's wrong with it. But anyway, So that's
Okay.
a little bit of a soapbox.
Yes,
Are we kind of done?
Yeah, I guess we'll be back tomorrow for the
Huh?
build-a-thon.
Did we get any good remarks? Any good reviews?
Oh god, yeah, people love it. Not smooth video, but great info. I think
Well-
we had better video quality off of YouTube than we had on AirMeet, so I don't
Yeah.
know. We're trying to work that
Well-
out. Hopefully we'll actually be able to get into AirMeet and have it start on time tomorrow.
Yes. Well, that was our biggest problem. It's just we
Yeah.
just couldn't start it. Somehow I wasn't authorized to start it, and we sat around twiddling our thumbs for quite a while.
Clips the screen on us too, which is
Yes.
kind of annoying. So
Yes.
maybe we'll have that figured out.
Well, I'm probably pretty sure it's because of the bandwidth. They got so many things going on at the same
Yeah.
time where,
Yeah.
they're just not geared up as big as YouTube is.
Yeah, because we're streaming up in high definition, which again, the people on YouTube can see that. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final comments before we say goodbye? I'm getting hungry.
Thank you for all of you too.
Yes. Yes, we thank you for being here. I mean, if it weren't for you guys, then we'd be sitting here and twiddling our thumbs, talking to nobody. I like to talk to people. I like to impart knowledge.
People looking for QRP transceivers that they can build at home. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a few on my site.
check out
QRPME.com.
site. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got.
Post the tool list. Don't forget that. Yep.
I won't forget the tool list. I could almost put it up there right now, but it's not complete. I didn't have enough time to do that, plus mail out 171 orders of kits
Yeah.
and get this thing all squared away. This is basically the third time we've done this
Yep.
thing in the last 2 days. So
Excellent. Thank you,
okay,
everybody.
all right.
I'm not sure what time tomorrow. I think it's 1 p.m. It's either noon or 1 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I thought we were up at 8. I thought it was 11.
But I think it's 8 Pacific time.
8 Pacific.
So 11 our time.
11 our time. I think it's 11 our time, but I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, we have to look at the schedule too. So.
Yeah, we couldn't even get in to see that. That was a tough thing to negotiate. Okay, all right, we're gonna sign out now, I guess.
Yep. You, everybody.
Bye.
Yes, we do that.
I don't know how we.
I don't know how we
We don't know how to get on. We don't know how to sign
We
up.
don't know how to stop.
Yeah. Okay, it'll just be live feed from Steve's garage for the next 24 hours.
End it on YouTube.
Okay. All right.